there is definitely that out there.
I'm not doing them. No, that's fine. No. I think we're okay.
Sorry. Happy Friday. It's closer to my Monday, but
When's your birthday? Isn't it during the summer?
it's not today.
Oh, I probably just.
It's on Monday. It's on Monday.
Love that you know.
I just do the one thing down with them.
Monday, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We got to start correcting. Probably a lot of stress. Your dad's, yep.
Who read the motion?
We're running late.
Smiles.
Would not want to.
They've not started to something. They've lose most of it. And then after. Oh. Damn, the community was. Does anybody need anything? Is everybody good?
We're good.
What? Fingering it on. I wish I could.
Time being 6:16, I call to order the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. This is a regular meeting for June 19th, 2025. Good evening, everyone. And with that, I'll have Ryan do roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Townsley, Councilor Schmal, Councilor Zelinski, Mayor Dame,
Here.
Councilor Weimer, Councilor Schachter, Councilor Smith. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Any agenda changes, agenda changes from council? I may add, let's call it an A8B. Just because we may want to respond to some public comment tonight.
That was normally in the.
Yeah, it's not in the agenda tonight, so that's why I thought we should put it in there. Maybe. Anyway. Moving on, disclosure of any councillor conflicts of interest. Also none. Great. We'll move into citizens appearing before council. Oh, there is council response. It's in the same thing. It's combined now. Okay, that is new. So never mind my 8A. It's item 8. Again, citizens appearing before council and or respond for items that are not in the agenda. And at this point, we are still not doing council comments online. You have to be here in person. You get to talk to us face to face. We will not take council comments online at this point. So with that, who's here to speak to us? Please step to the podium, state your name, and whether you live in city limits or not.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Heather McGregor. I live on Airport Road within the city limits,
Thank you.
and I am here representing the Glenwood Springs Citizens Alliance. I serve on the board. I'm the vice president. The mission of the Citizens Alliance is to protect the economy, the environment, and our quality of life in Glenwood Springs. Is there a problem?
Just a second. Is her microphone on? Is the podium microphone on?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
hear it reverberating.
Yeah, we didn't either. Thank you.
Okay. We've been following the elements of the federal reconciliation bill quite closely. This bill contains many many elements that attack the well-being of Americans. But we've come here tonight to express alarm at the provision that's been added in the Senate to require the government to sell off millions of acres of federal lands in 11 Western states. The provision does not affect national parks, national monuments, or wilderness areas, but our front country is at risk. All these other lands that are managed by the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management are at risk and could be eligible for sale. A map prepared by the Wilderness Society shows some lands across the West that could be eligible. These include, in our area, national forest lands around Glenwood Canyon, including the city's entire watershed in Grizzly Creek and No Name Creek. I can't begin to imagine the risk this presents for the city's water supply. It also includes BLM lands near West Glenwood, such as the flanks of the flat tops west of Oasis Creek and rising up to the horizon to the north, and the escarpment of Red Mountain south of the meadows. This is an essential scenic backdrop for our beautiful community. None of these lands, by the way, would be suitable for housing, which is the stated purpose of this land sale. And Congress already has a mechanism to dispose of lands on a case-by-case basis through legislation. It was done recently with 31 acres near I-70 in Mesa County. Anyway, we can't really allow these lands to be put on the auction block. So earlier today, the Glenwood Springs Citizens Alliance Board met. We passed a motion. They authorized me to present a request to you folks to pass a resolution opposing the sale of our public lands. Another option, since this wasn't on the agenda and thus didn't have public notice, would be for the city council to write letters. Either way, we'd like to see the city council urge the Colorado delegation, the Colorado congressional delegation, to actively oppose and aggressively pursue elimination of this provision in its entirety. We'd also like to see Glenwood Springs lead the way for elected officials in neighboring
Your
communities.
time is up.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Please come forward. State your name and whether you live in city limits or not.
My name is Sharon Young. I live within Glenwood Springs city limits.
Thank you.
I'm here just to echo what Heather is saying for the Glenwood Springs Citizens Alliance and hope that you will adopt a resolution against the sale of public lands. This affects so much of our life here in Glenwood Springs and in Colorado. I think it's incredibly important. I've never been at a city council meeting before, and so I wanted to come and echo what the Citizens Alliance is saying and urge you to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Anybody else? Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in city limits or not. And I
Yes,
neglected
my
to
name
say.
is Robert Semrau, live in West Glenwood.
Thank you.
I wanted to also agree with everything that's been said today. I'm very concerned about basically public lands being sold off. In West Glenwood, I'm very concerned about the whole edge of the flat tops, which I live next to. I absolutely think that it's important that the city council and if possible, the county commissioners actually do something to indicate to legislators that this is something which the population that you represent would not be in favor of. I think you can look back to past situations like with the quarry, where you could see that this is something that the average Glenwood city citizen would not approve of. So I sincerely hope that you follow the recommendations, and that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here. Anybody else? Please state your name and whether you live in city limits.
Hi, I'm Ashley Travis, and yes, I live in city limits.
Cute.
I'm here for a completely different reason. I'm here on behalf of the ownership at Altitude Apartments over by Walmart. And our ownership is having a cleanup of the homeless camp that is behind our apartments. It's causing a lot of issues and possibly even some fire danger, depending. You know, they did have a fire a couple years back. So we have a scheduled cleanup with Mountain Youth. And so we're just asking for some more volunteers if anyone would be willing to. It is on July 10th from 12 to 6. And then the sheriff's and police department are already aware, and they will also be there for safety reasons and other concerns. So yeah, just asking for some volunteers. That's on the 10th, July 10th again, from 12 to 6.
All right, thank you very much for the information. Thank you.
If someone were to want to volunteer, how do they get involved?
You could probably just email me. My email is ashley.travis@gb.85.com. Or Altitude Apartments, give us a call and I'll get you scheduled.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Hang on, no, that's finished it. Next time we'll finish all the comments, then we'll ask, but that's fine.
Sorry.
All good. Anybody else here for public comment? Okay, we'll see none. We'll close the public portion. Now we'll bring it back to council for questions or comments, and we'll go with Councillor Zelinski, please.
I was just going to add to Ashley, Laura Speck at the Silver Bead is also instrumental in like gathering resources for that cleanup. So you could probably pop in and reach out to her there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And any other responses to comments we heard tonight?
Forgot which button to push, sorry.
The one with the person on it. It's Stephen Smith. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you. A question initially to city staff on the public lands speakers. There was mention of a resolution, which is kind of a big reach, impromptu, I think, for a council, but there was also mention of letters. How do we go about considering either of those techniques if the council is interested in expressing?
I certainly, as individuals, I sent you some information earlier today, a fairly good summary on the bill. You can individually send something out. You could also, ask that the mayor and the mayor pro tem prepare some kind of a letter. I think it's very difficult and a little awkward, Councillor Smith, because I'm probably going to ask you to recuse yourself from this conversation since your wife was at the podium representing formally.
I posed it as a question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. I think at this point, we have had a couple of very bad experiences in recent memory about taking action a little too quickly. And I think I would want to be able to brief council on what the full, as much as I could about the bill and what's going on with it, so they could make a reasoned decision before we ask any formal action of you guys. Certainly, you could call a special session if you wanted to. We don't have a first meeting in July because of the holiday. But like I said, obviously, speaking for yourself as an individual council member, you're more than welcome to send a letter regarding the issue to the congressional delegation, and we can help you with those addresses. But like I said, it's very hard without formal council action for us to go on record as taking a position on something. And since you guys are really coming up to speed basically from noon today to now, I don't expect that you would be in a position to make that decision. And like I said, we've had a couple of bad runs at off the cuff decisions.
For what it's worth, that was my other motivation in posing a question rather than a proposal. I was in the audience in those previous experiences, but I thought that was a tough position to put the council into, to hear something now, act 2 minutes later. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Schachter, please.
So there's no question that we would be impacted, and this is important, and the Alliance has helped us immensely. I would also, other than our own personal letters, I would defer at this point to get more information and probably some guidance from council as to how this is all interacting with what's happening locally, statewide, and federally, and what our best action might or might not be collectively, regardless of how we feel individually. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Schmal, please.
Yeah, it's way too fast for council to be considering a resolution, regardless of the merits, regardless of the fears. It's too quick. So I hope that no one thinks that that's a dereliction of duty, but the duty is to understand the issue altogether. And frankly, we don't and haven't yet. So I hope, I apologize in advance if you think that's a dereliction of duty.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Smith again?
A clarifying question. You offered the suggestion, the staff offered the suggestion that city council members could write individual letters. What's the protocol on identifying ourselves
Absolutely.
as citizens or as members?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's entirely appropriate for you to, if you want to send a letter to Congressman Hurd and sign that letter as, Counselor Smith, Ward 5, Glenwood Springs. I would probably include somewhere in there and speaking on behalf of myself as a member of the city council, but not on behalf of city council, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? See none? A couple of questions from me. And it's been mentioned, but if we were inclined to do something as council, how long would it take us to get something together on your end and us understanding the entire issue, and how much time do we have?
Good question. Those are all good questions. Let me start with the last one first. So this has not gone to the floor of the Senate yet. It's just coming out of committee. So we don't know exactly what the final version of the reconciliation bill that would go to a floor vote would look like. We'll probably know that mostly in the next week or so. I know that the president had really wanted to see this bill voted on in the Senate before the 4th of July, and that's what the majority leader was indicating. We'll see if that actually happens. There seems to be a lot of moving pieces in the bill currently in the Senate. So I think sometime next week we would know better what is going on. And I would suggest that probably trying to get I gave you some materials that I'm sure you haven't had a chance to even look at yet. I sent out kind of as they were coming into me this afternoon. We can provide a little bit more information. You guys can do a little bit of digging on your own. I would think towards the end of next week would be kind of when that would work. I mean, certainly if we feel like it's critical that we do something, we can call a special meeting. Can do that via Zoom, which is what we usually do on those single issues. If there's something like that we just need to deal with that one thing, that would be my feeling is sometime Thursday or Friday next week, probably.
Okay, and would you think that a collective letter from us would hold some weight in this? Would it be?
Yeah, I think a letter that is thoughtful and I think more than just our hair's on fire, but a little more directed at the specific issues that we see as they impact our community is, I think over time we have found to be far more effective with our congressional delegation than kind of the form like no public lands should ever be sold off. While we may agree with that sentiment, it really helps them when they go to the floor to have specific examples of why this community in their state is directly and materially impacted in these ways. Those stories are super powerful when they're negotiating with their colleagues. So that's what I would be aiming to try to accomplish with a letter.
So the letter is the preference over a resolution?
I think it could be either one, but I think in both cases, we really need to, drill down to how is this impacting the watershed? How is this impacting the tourist economy? How could it potentially impact any number of things? Up to and including the way the bill is drafted, it essentially pits us against private development for bidding on projects, and recognizing that in the state of Colorado, we can borrow money, get authorization to borrow money once a year, and that it takes time for us versus the private sector. And even that intersection of, just pragmatic things has an impact. And I think those are the types of things we would want to identify and would be much more meaningful to the delegation than just kind of a 5-line resolution in opposition.
Okay, one last thing, and I'll bring it back to council. And I don't know how all of you feel, but I think that most of you would feel okay with moving forward with the letter. If we learn over the next week or 10 days that this is going to be imperative that we put together this letter and send it out, would you guys be okay having a impromptu Zoom meeting to vote on this and move this letter forward? And just give me a head nod and then we'll have direction.
Not sure if I'm allowed to nod my head, but I would if I could.
Fair enough. Nicely put, actually. But if I just feel, and believe me, I feel exactly the same way you do. But I'm only 1 of 7. We need to come together as a collective, and we'll have to go with direction of legal on this because this is very important that we get this.
Like I said, I would want to have time to really craft that letter and really understand, because like I said, those are. I will tell you, and specifically, we would be speaking to, Congressman Hurd most loudly in this situation, right? He is in the majority. He is in the House. It has to go back over to the House. Our experience talking to him here in this room about issues related to Glenwood is that he is very engaged, but he very much wants to hear what the impacts are.
Right.
He's very,
the details,
by trade.
right?
He wants to know the details. He wants to know how it's going to impact things. He wants to be able to tell that story. And so that's what I want to be able to put together to be most effective, I think, because we kind of get one shot at this.
Right. So what I heard is we're good with putting it in your lap and Steve, management's lap to let us know how this develops and give us information as it becomes available.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your.
Would you like?
I just want to say thank you for your work and your efforts, and bring it to the forefront of our attention so that we can put together something that is sensible and rational and unemotional so that we can have a compelling argument. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Aaron. And just to sum it up, I echo that completely. I think it was great that we heard about it. Thank you for the email to actually make us aware that it's moving fast. That's why I thought it was important that we get staff involved and make sure that we're doing this correctly. We need to be on the same page, and we need to understand, and we have to have it, like Carl said, we have one shot at it. So let's do this correctly. But we'll do what we can. So thank you very much. Anything else from council at this point? No, we'll see none. Okay, great. We'll move. Actually, I jumped item 7. I was all excited about you guys talking, so I completely missed council announcements. So I'm going back to item 7. And if anybody has anything to say, push your button. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Several things happened recently and several things are coming up. Some of them relate to bicycles. Bike There breakfast on June 10th was a big success. 17% increase in participation over last year at 2 stations, fed a lot of people who were going to their various places by bicycle. June 25th, next Wednesday, is Bike There afternoon, which will be at each of the libraries around the county, hosted by another city partner, Clean Energy Economy for the Region. In both those instances, and starting tomorrow, there will be hosted, shaded, pleasant bicycle parking at the Strawberry Days Festival, organized by volunteers. But in each of those 3 instances, with support from the city, in some cases financial support, in other cases personnel, in other cases just space. So the city had a nice hand in 3 bicycling events, 1 of which is successful, and I expect the other 2 will be. The Historic Preservation Commission, on which I serve as liaison, has created and put up a very professional looking display of their work and a kind of a recruitment for membership. It's in the local branch of the public library, just inside the front door. So take a look at that. Transportation Commission, where I also serve as liaison, is short 2 members. And so mentioning it to council, but to the microphone as well. It's another dynamic group of experts that focus on a really critical issue for all people in this town. So encourage people to apply for membership on that commission. And then I think my final announcement is last week I attended the annual board work meeting and conference of the Colorado Communities for Climate Action. 48 communities around the Colorado, they calculate representing 1/3 of all Colorado citizens are working on climate action policies, which they get translated in many cases to municipal opportunities for action. They lobby at the legislature. They do a lot of publicity, but mostly they provide a lot of resources to their member cities and counties. One thing, it was a really good bunch of interactions. I've met a bunch of good people. Among other things, got connected with a mid-Roaring Fork Valley group of city officials who are working from their angle. So I'm going to sit in on a couple of their sessions to see if there's any cross-pollinating available. A more tangible thing that came out of that conference is the director of the State of Colorado Energy Office attended, and among many other bits of information, he announced that that office has announced a grant application opportunity for a total of $50 million statewide, available in $2 million chunks to work on climate retrofitting and climate impact reduction, focused on buildings, land use, transportation, and water. There was a workshop Tuesday, but I wasn't quick enough to notice in time to watch kind of a description of how to apply, but there is another follow-up workshop in a week and a half, and I'll be sure to relay that to the appropriate staff, and I'll probably sit in on it. But in any case, the application for the first round within that 50 million is due August 1st. The application process is open now. The first round is due August 1st with a 5% match, again, $2 million each. And I'd be glad to follow up with any staff that you think are appropriate to see if that would be useful as an opportunity.
Yeah, if you'll send that to me, I can distribute it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith and Councillor Zelinski.
So I'm just going to make a pitch for our revolving loan fund. All the business community, everybody thinking about a business, anybody with like expansion plans, contact Jacob Zook with the city of Glenwood Springs and explore if any of our economic development opportunities are appropriate for you, particularly the revolving loan fund. So I just think it's an underutilized resource, and I really want to get people excited about it. Also, there's Tuesday Market. So the first one went off, I think, really, really well. Thank you to our DDA. I've heard nothing but great feedback. So every Tuesday from now until mid-September.
Excellent, thank you. Any other announcements?
I'm waiting for one of you to say there's going to be a tent that you're
I'm
at.
working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was mine. That was, I was going to do that.
In your Swiss fashion.
That's right. First everybody else, then me. Yes, I'll do the announcement for Strawberry Days. Everybody knows it's here. It's tomorrow, Friday through Sunday. Council and some city staff will be serving beer at the beer tent. So we may have a second to chat, but not a whole lot, but come by, say hi. We will also be staffing at different times the council tent, which is somewhere amongst the vendors. I'm not quite sure the location, but okay, behind the beer tent, maybe. I just was informed. And if you want to come chat, come by. We'll be there 2 or 3 of us at the time, and there's plenty of time to chat. So chat. Yeah, not wine. No, chat. No, the beer is beer, no wine, and then chat. That's correct. So that's, I don't know if we do it Friday night, if anybody has a Friday night shift. It's, I think, just Saturday, Sundays. Saturday, Sunday. Yep. Anyway, Strawberry Days, it's coming. Our biggest event. So exciting. With that, we'll move into the consent agenda.
I get one more shot?
Just because it's you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. You reminded me of the Strawberry Days. And then I got all enthused about my love of bicycling and the bicycling accommodations that are at part of Strawberry Days. But also, city is very active in other modes of getting people to and from the park without your car. The Dial-A-Ride program is going to have all 4 vehicles deployed. They're going to have a specified central pickup point at the turnaround loop by the boat ramp, so the people and the van don't have to hunt for each other. So we got that organized well. A contract van is going to be shuttling every few minutes from parking lots at the high school and at the old West Glenwood Mall.
Oh, wow.
And Ride Glenwood Springs itself, running along 6 and 24 right next to the park, will extend its service hours each of those 2 nights, Friday and Saturday, until 11 p.m. So the city is cranking up on helping people get to and from Strawberry Days in an impressive way. Thank you.
Excellent. Great information. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, now we'll move on. Item 9, consent agenda, entertaining a motion. Councillor Zelinski.
I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve and Councillor Weimer
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? We'll see none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? We'll see none. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, which are the project updates for tonight. And I believe that is Ryan Gordon, City Engineer. Facebook, he's on Facebook. Michael put it in the budget. All right. Is it a classic?
Aha. First time getting on the screen. Hello, everybody. Ryan Gordon, your city engineer. Here to give you an update on our project. So I know you've seen this map before. I know it is relatively small-ish. I apologize, but it represents the whole city. There has been a few things that have changed to green, which means it has been complete. So as you recall, last time the 27th Street Bridge was closed for a weekend. That has been complete. That was done in about a day. Some disruption, but again, a necessary part of our maintenance plan. I think that's probably the only thing that was truly completed from this list, and then a couple other updates. So I'm going to start with an impact that's going to start this upcoming Monday. So 20th Street from Grand Avenue to about 50 feet to the east, not blocking, say, the entrance to Taco Bell or First Bank. We are starting a project there, which is replacing some curb and gutter and some buckling sidewalk. That's a constant place for potholes. So we're replacing the road platform with concrete. That will be a full closure for a full week. We've had discussions with the hospital, make sure that they understand it and have deliveries rerouted and other stakeholders. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware. We have the Blake Avenue project going on. I'm going to jump into that right away. So obviously that's down 23rd Street. So they're relatively close. So there's going to be some overlap and some challenges there. But we're making really great progress on the Blake Avenue project. So the sewer has been completed. So the sewer was in Blake from 21st to 23rd. So that's been completed. And the water line, which goes from Grand Avenue up 23rd all the way to Bennett, that's more than halfway done. So I've done a really great job, looking to wrap up probably water maybe next week. Jump back and start the stormwater improvements. So making really, really solid progress on that. Be aware that Blake Avenue is still closed. While there is one-way access down 23rd Street, we're going to keep the traffic control in place. You will be able to get down there, but if you're traveling southbound on Grand, you can't turn left onto 23rd. We have some open trenches that will be one-wayed, but I will caution that there will be intermittent full lane closures as we're doing services, fire hydrants, stormwater work. So best to avoid that area and use the detours that are in place. Over to 6th Street. So we've made some significant progress on 6th Street. So 6th Street is open. It was opened last week and we have lots of parking open. I was out there over the weekend. You couldn't tell that there was construction by the amount of people out there. It was jam-packed, looked awesome. I will caution that we do still have safety barricades in place. The work that's being done on the main drag is the landscaping work that will be happening probably for the next 3 or 4 weeks. We have a ton of plants and trees and shrubs going in, so it's going to take some time. Those barricades are up until we get the rest of the topsoil in, so we don't have any trip hazards or holes for people to fall in. But it is open and it looks great. Yesterday, Maple Street, which was closed last week, is now open. So we don't have any road closures currently in the 6th Street area. So I'd encourage everybody to go over there and take a look. And just to remind everybody that Ride Glenwood On Demand is still taking people over there for free, if that's your destination or your origination point. And I believe we still have some of the 6th Street green coupons still out there. So those are available through the end of this month. So yeah, please go and visit the area. It looks great. All the businesses have stuff out onto their patios and going gangbusters here as we're looking forward to the summer season. Another project that we have going on, Red Mountain North, that's over on 9th Street in the Red Mountain neighborhood. The water line has been in and tested, so we're progressing really, really well there. A few more connections to be made in water and sewer. Looking to start curb and gutter as soon as maybe the end of next week, and we're on schedule there to be done sometime in September. Although that's a flexible schedule, and we're hoping to be a little more aggressive on that, but making really good progress on that project. We have a stretch of Wilson Road in between West Midland and say Lowe's. That is a full closure. And, Raft has been detouring their buses. That was necessary in order to make some repairs, partially because the road needed to be fixed, but partially because of some of the activities with BLD. That is scheduled to be open at the end of June. So again, avoid that area. That is a full detour closure. You can't get by. I will say that the sidewalk and pedestrian access is open, so that is available for folks, but certainly if you're driving a vehicle, you can't get through the area at all. I'm not going to touch on any of the design stuff. If you guys are interested, I'm more than happy to have a discussion, but I wanted to get into a little bit of Southbridge as well. Quick update on Southbridge, because we have hit a couple significant milestones. As you know, the 90% drawing set was completed. We had our FOR meeting, which is essentially the 90% review with CDOT to get their comments, and we're going to incorporate those into our documents. The environmental assessment has been completed and is into CDOT and FHWA for review. Recall that in that study, the environmental assessment, there was a sound study that we were obligated to redo. Based on that, and because we are going to implement tolling on the bridge, a sound wall at the Cardiff Glen neighborhood is not going to be mandated. And that's not to say, again, we're not going to do anything. We're really looking forward to doing additional work, whether that's fencing and landscaping. We're going to be looking and maturing those ideas. In regards to that as well, I wanted to mention that there is a neighborhood meeting planned in the South Glenwood neighborhood. This is certainly open to anybody, but it's more tailored towards the South Glenwood neighborhoods who are be more impacted. That's going to be Monday, June 30th from 5:30 to 6:30, and it'll be hosted at Sopris Elementary School. Our plan at that meeting is to bring everybody up to speed on where we are with the design, the next steps, the implications of the sound study, the wall, and our ideas for both traffic control measures and what we're going to do to protect the neighborhood with fencing and landscaping and whatnot. Right away is progressing. The notice of intent to purchase property with a right of way or easements has been issued. That was issued back in April and May. And then the assessments are going to be incurring the next couple weeks. So again, that's progressing, very well. So that's kind of a quick and dirty update on anything, and looking to take any comments or questions from council.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Great update. Any questions from council? We'll start with Councilor Tansley, please.
Two things. Ryan, I've been over to 6th Street. That looks absolutely awesome. Really, really nice job there. Everybody involved. When you're having the neighborhood meetings and whatnot on Southbridge, are we still letting people know that this is not, there may be funding pullback on you know, the grant to $50 million grant, there may be other issues with this, so that we're not just giving them the impression that everything is done and settled, or where, I mean, how are you presenting that to the citizens?
Right, yeah, we will be presenting both schedule update and some clarity on where we are with funding. And I wish we had a lot of clarity, but there's still a lot of murkiness. But we will be discussing that with the community of what the status is.
Okay.
And just for your knowledge as well, again, there's no update from our counterparts at CDOT or FHWA and where things stand with our major grant. So that's kind of the big sticking point. We're really working forward and progressing the project forward with the understanding that everything is okay. You can't really kind of stop here and start. So our idea is to get through the design, complete that, which will be delivered to us the end of September. And then if everything goes well, we will be going out to bid sometime in early 26.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Schmal.
Ryan, I would encourage you, if you have the capability, to have some visuals of what your alternative to the sound walls look like, to show at the neighborhood meeting, so that they can visualize what you're thinking. I think it'd communicate really well.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, we are planning to bring some visuals, some of the documents, some of the drawings, right? So yeah, we can give a real good idea of what we're kind of looking at doing there.
Remember that you're going to be talking to the neighborhood folks that aren't nearly as up to speed on looking at drawings as what you are.
Yep, certainly agree. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zelinski.
For that neighborhood meeting, is there a presentation, or is it just gonna be like storyboards?
Yeah, we're going to start with a pretty brief presentation. Again, talk about where we are, the next steps. That'll probably be a 10 to 15-minute presentation, maybe at most. Really, my goal is to solicit the feedback and to really listen from folks. I know there's going to be a lot of questions and concerns, so we really have a chance to really discuss that. And I will say that, we really want to hear from everybody, and a lot of people may not be able to attend. We want anybody who's interested in having a conversation with the engineering staff to reach out, please. And we will schedule times to meet with you individually or with groups. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to hear what's going on and to provide some feedback.
Perfect. That's where I was going with that, was like, what would be the alternative if they can't get there? So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Ryan, for that detail on all of those projects. How many hundred people do you have working in your department?
Well, let's see. We are up now to 5, I believe. We have 5, yeah.
And thank you also for earlier sending out to at least the city council members the 90% drawings on the South Bridge proposal. I did notice in those drawings that the old masonry, the location and the size of the masonry noise walls still seem to be depicted on those drawings. How does that get rectified with your new policy decision?
Yep. That's a good observation. So the process that we did this whole time is we carried forth the idea of a tolled option, which is the one we're going with, and the non-tolled option. And the reason why is this project all along, again, we kind of came up and started investigating this tolling option about 1.5 years ago. And the original EA documents did not have a toll. So we did sort of a parallel path as we were going through the process and the review process with CDOT and FHWA. Therefore, we wanted to depict in both the documents, EA documents and the drawings, that there was a sound wall depicted. Now, those will be removed as we move forward, as we've gotten confirming information from CDOT and FHWA that has been accepted. So as we move forward, those will be removed, but those were still there as sort of a byproduct of having 2 parallel trains, and it was a little bit clunky about how to represent it, but that's the rationale.
Thank you. On another one of your projects that you didn't mention tonight, the downtown alley dazzling work. The city has long, I think 7 or 8 years, had a published dismount zone in the downtown core. Bicycles, skateboards, roller skates must be dismounted on the sidewalks, basically from 7th to 10th and from here to Blake. The alleyways in their previous condition were exempted from that. So you could ride your bicycle, you could do your skateboard in the alleys. Now that the alleys have more of a pedestrian look, they look like sidewalks. Should that dismount zone be extended to those new fresh alleys?
Councilor Smith, that's an interesting point. I haven't thought about that, but that's probably something that we should visit. Certainly the alleyways, right, are again, more pedestrianized, and they're still frequented by trash trucks and deliveries. So they don't lend themselves well to cycling and skateboarding down them. So we will have a discussion and see if it warrants to extend that
Great, thank you.
privitation. Yeah.
Thank you. And Councilor Schachter.
Ryan, thank you. What do you consider for your meeting at Sopus Elementary? What do you consider the impacted neighborhood? How far do you extend that information and invitation?
Yeah, so certainly we're broadcasting to who everybody wants to attend, but we are putting door hangers on all the neighborhoods. So Park East, Park West, Glenwood Park, the whole Cardiff Glen neighborhoods, and anyone who are sort of the outliers and aren't specifically part of those neighborhoods. So essentially everybody in South Glenwood, we are trying to make aware of this big meeting.
So albeit not in the city, do you include somehow letting 3 Mile residents know what's going on at that meeting, or extending it that there's a meeting coming on, even though you're not in the city, you're in an impacted zone?
That's a good
I don't
point.
think you can do door hangers, but
Yeah.
some kind of reach out to that neighborhood.
That's a good question, right? Door hangers are going to be tough 3 Mile just because of the dispersing of the homes.
Maybe signage, I don't know, but they're impacted for sure.
Yeah, we could reach out. Certainly, we're talking some of the other areas. So, we have a few enclaves in the area, Old Cardiff Bridge Road, and there's multiple residents there. And then the area, First Street, Darrow area, there's 4 or 5 homes too that we're going to reach out as well. So we will think about how to reach out in the best way we can to the 3 Mile residents in particular. But certainly I agree, they all are going to be impacted and should be noted.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? We'll see none. Thank you, Ryan. Anybody from the public like to comment? Has a question about the construction updates? Nobody online? Okay, we'll see none. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for the updates. We'll move into item 11 and Glenwood Springs Mountain and Aspen Basalt Mobile Home Parks. And for people that are here for that, the item 12 also says, no, that might be a different one. That's a different one. Never mind. We'll do item 11 at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Hannah's going to guide this conversation. This refers to 2 mobile home parks, preservation up valley from us. One of them is in Carbondale, one of them is in Basalt. A number of communities have come together to try to buy down the rents on these properties, and we've been asked to participate in that.
Okay.
So that's kind of the background on this one.
Thank you, Steve. Hannah, please.
So we had a work session at your last, Hannah Klausman, Community and Economic Development Director.
I should have said Miss Klausman, please.
Yeah. Nice to see you all, council. We had a work session with council on this item at your last meeting. So you had a chance to kind of look over some of the schematics of this deal, which is a little bit different than the one that we're doing for the mobile home park here in Glenwood Springs. The contributions from different jurisdictions are incoming. So we have a lot that have gone public, and they're making up some pretty significant ground. And then there's some that are still going before their boards and commissions. We are coming before you tonight. So this is an interesting request. It's not from West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. It's not a request from that group. It is a request from the regional jurisdictional representation. West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition is an organizing component of this, but they're not the ones requesting money from each jurisdiction. I just wanted to make that clear. And some of the jurisdictions, including Basalt, received funding through various grants to actually pay for the administrative services of West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition to be that organizer. So the coalition, as I will refer to them because the other thing is a mouthful, has been setting up the meetings and sending out updates from things and organizing the jurisdictions to meet up with Thistle and Rock, as you guys are very familiar with as well. So just wanted to make that distinction. So there are some updates on the funding that is coming forward. It's now become a feasible possibility for these residents to enter into a resident-owned community. The threshold was they needed to at least have $5 million, but they're aiming for 20. And right now we're somewhere in the realm of about 10 million from various entities that have come forward, and a lot have come forward and upped their initial amount. So that is places like Pitkin County and Eagle County. They're both confirmed. Aspen as well as Carbondale, or Carbondale is not quite committed, but Basalt also just came in. And then some private funding as well from Atlantic Aviation, the major FBO down at the Garfield County Airport. I will state Garfield County is currently discussing this option. I think they were aware West Mountain was communicating with them to keep them updated on the amounts that were coming in and who was donating. And seeing that, particularly Atlantic Aviation held a lot of weight for them because they're one of the big players at the airport. The county is discussing this option, but I don't have an update for you from that end. So we provided some of the information in the staff report, and what we're looking at, obviously, this is not within our borders. This is not necessarily the same workforce as you're seeing in our own mobile home park. But staff does believe, there are benefits to supporting this regional effort for these two parks. A lot of the same reasons that we're doing it in our own jurisdiction, but we'd be more of a regional sub player. And that is why we included in the staff report just a recommending consideration of $100,000 to participate in this effort. And that is where I will stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Schachter.
For Hannah, did you include, I'll frame this as a question. I believe I just read that Snowmass made $1 million commitment. In addition,
Snowmass
so there's,
confirmed
yeah.
1 million, which was up from their initial thoughts.
So there's
So
a
they
lot of
doubled the amount.
momentum. Yeah.
That was it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council or, questions? Oh, see none? I got a quick question. I'm just curious. Basalt, Carbondale, just jurisdiction or municipalities, what did they contribute?
The confirmed ones that are in the paper and able for me to go ahead. You've got Pitkin County at 3 million, Aspen also at 3 million, Snowmass at 1 million, Eagle County at 1.5 million as cash and 1.5 million as a loan. And then Basalt has committed 500,000. The rest are still presenting to their boards.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Here we go. Councilor Schachter, start with you.
I think this is reiterating what we talked about before, but my understanding is the ask at this point is $100,000. It's a general fund allocation. Is that correct, Steve? And reasonable?
Yeah, this would come from the general fund. We don't have a specific ask. I mean, we've just been asked to participate. And I think, a 6-figure contribution is probably enough to show, a gesture of our support without breaking the bank.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Townsley.
So just so I'm real, clear on this, essentially what this money would do is subsidize rents in 2 other communities through our general fund. Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Schmall.
And how many other mobile home parks are up in Eagle and Pitkin and the other areas that are supporting Hannah? Do you know offhand?
I don't actually know the number. Up Valley, quite a few of them have been purchased by jurisdictions. I'm sure there are a handful that are still out there that are private.
Because just for perspective, I think there are at least 8 others within our jurisdiction that, based on this ball getting rolling, are going to eventually be coming to us for more money.
I think I would say to that, hopefully, with the regional perspective, though I can't confirm, our showing that we're participating, it's definitely crossed my mind that we might be making that ask in return for mobile home parks within Glenwood Springs.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Is there a fiscal agent for these various contributions, or are they just pledges for the moment until the money itself goes somewhere in particular? You said the Western Mountain is not the organizing organization. Is there one? And who takes care of all this money?
You know, I'm not actually immediately, I can't answer that question of who, like for us, funds are committed. They've got Thistle and Rock that are the lending piece of this. Carl, you want to?
Yeah, I think that really at this point, it's more in the nature of pledges. And once there's a closing date set and an escrow and title company, that money I think will be transferred in. Obviously, all these public entities are not, ourselves included, if you're inclined to provide any additional support, don't just write checks and then walk away. So it would be at the closing table when that would come in.
Thank you.
Thank you for triggering my memory. Each commission that has arrived at their final amount is providing Thistle Rock with a commitment letter, just so that they know that it's secure, so they can move forward with the lending items. So if we were to do that, it would be the same. It wouldn't be something that comes out right away, only at close when it actually occurs.
Thank you. And also, Councilor Townsley's question prompts a follow-up from me. Did I understand the question and answer correctly, that all of this money, 10, maybe 11 million so far, is specifically in anticipation of the sales of the parks going through and rents going up? This is not an attempt to meet the 42, 26, 12 million. No, this is not an attempt, as in Mountain Mobile here, to actually compete in the purchasing?
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. So while a big portion of this will subsidize the rents that they would have paid if they increase, this is another purchase of a mobile home, a resident-owned community. So the rents increasing from the private side are going to be much higher. With this, through Thistle and Rock and contributions, it allows the residents to purchase the park, set up the collaborative resident owned so that they actually own their community, and then their rents are more controlled in that manner. So it is subsidizing what their rents would be in a different scenario, but they're still owners. So I realized when I said yes, it's got a little bit of nuance there. It is purchasing of the park. The residents will be the owner, and they will set up a collaborative, just like the mobile home park here that we're working on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter.
Thank you, Hannah. Piggybacking off you and Councilor Smith, it was my understanding perhaps that part of this money, maybe a significant amount, will allow Thistle and the owners to even make a competitive bid, because there's a gap in Thistle's financing, and above and beyond that may also do what we're accomplishing in our town to help keep rent increases from being exorbitant. They will go up. So it's a two-part thing. One, they need enough capital. Do they not even make a bid? And second, the secondary benefit might be to keep rents suppressed. Is that
Yes,
fairly accurate?
very accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping me out.
Thank you.
It's a challenging topic.
It is. Councilor Schmal, please.
Sorry, one more. And we have, I think, somewhere in the $200,000 to $300,000 range already committed to the Western Regional Housing Coalition. How does that help this effort?
It actually does not. So the money that we have committed to the coalition is actually for the Good Deeds buy down program. So that's the program where for sale market rate homes are purchased, and the fund buys up to 30% of a house so that it makes it affordable and places a deed restriction on it. We started off with 200,000 was our initial one from the general fund, I believe. And then we were able to make another 100,000 from 2C towards that effort. Once we came, West Mountain came and presented to council to show them that we're the large beneficiary of that program on the whole. But so that money is for a specific program. And as I mentioned, that's kind of the differentiation of West Mountain in this instance, is it's not their program that's funding the purchase. They're the convener of the jurisdictions that are submitting. So two separate pots of money.
All good? No worries. Thank you. And Councillor Townsley.
I guess when Councillor Shackner just asked you the question, it seems to me like there's two different answers to the same question. You know, as I read through the material that had been presented to us, it was like this money is for rent subsidies or, you know, maintaining a certain level of rent versus being used for any other purpose as far as, you know, is this necessary for them to even make the bid? So I'm still unclear as to which is the right answer to that.
Okay, so the money that's being compiled from the jurisdictions is to allow both of the parks residents to make an offer on the property. There is a current offer on both, and so they need to be able to match that. And so part of what I mentioned in the staff report is that they set a goal. 20 million is the ideal to be able to give to the residents to be able to have the most feasible chance of making the offer and keeping basically their mortgage payments for the lots low. So all of this that's being collected, the 10 million that I mentioned from those other places, are to get to the resident-owned community. And if that doesn't happen, none of this funding is going to actually be given. So it's the exact same process as our own mobile home park. And I apologize if I didn't make that immediately clear. Word for word, they're Thistle and Rock are here to do the lending and set that up to make an offer to purchase the park. And then there's also that aspect of once that offer is made, the owner isn't required to take that offer. So they need to get as high as possible to match the offer that's on the table to purchase the park. If that doesn't happen or falls through, none of the funding that we're talking about will occur, including our own.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Zelinski.
I'm just curious, when you were talking about the Good Deeds program, are we committed to any sort of an annual contribution to that fund? Because I have a feeling what we've given is they probably need ongoing funding sources.
The last council commitment was for 100,000 over the course of 3 years, obviously subject to budget appropriations as we go forward. But that would be a line item that we bring you in this year's budget and then the following. So we did that for a 3-year period to give a little bit of stability and also to not come back asking. So with budget approvals, that would move forward with $100,000 for 2026 and possibly $100,000 for 2027 for the Good Deeds program. And yes, as soon as the money comes in, as you can imagine, all the people out there buying homes, it is basically accounted for.
Yeah.
And I think we're up to 10 homes, 7 of which are in Glenwood Springs.
Thank you for that clarification.
That's actually amazing. Thank you for that info. That's really good to know. Any other questions? One more. Councillor Weimer, please.
Hannah, in your write-up, let's see. The coalition is pursuing as much money as possible to help residents secure the properties and take them off the market. The coalition can then go out. So goal 1 is to get the thing off, is to take the property off the market, to take the immediate heat off. The coalition can then go out and try to raise the additional money to then develop the rock. Is that right? Step 2?
The step 2 is more achieving that 20 million. And that was set as a threshold to keep rents from increasing more than $400 a month per lot.
But if the thing is up for sale.
If with the funding, Thistle Rock will make an offer that matches or hopefully comes very close to the match.
Okay.
And then there's ongoing fundraising efforts to then put more money into that so they can pay it off and not have their rents rise as quickly. So it's a matter of how big of a loan do they need to take? And after they've purchased it and they maybe have a very large loan, if the goal is to continue to fundraise to bring that down, to find additional people after the fact to offset that and bring it down further so that it's not above
So,
$400 more per month.
so is it fair to say there somehow this coalition needs north of $60 million to achieve their goals? The 42 plus 20?
That's good math.
42, where's the 42 coming from? Just so I can.
It's the purchase price.
Both parks. 42 million is the offer to purchase both parks. The goal that was set from the jurisdictional coalition was to get 20 million in subsidies to make that as feasible as possible. But as I said, even with 5 million, that was the point where Thistle and Rock are like, we can move forward and make an effort of this.
Something's not clicking for me. So, and I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
it might not be clicking for me.
Can I,
Hang on.
let me see if I can help, if I understand, I'm gonna read it back as I'm hearing it. The minimum investment for Thistle Rock to
Start simpler.
Yeah.
The thing is for sale today.
The thing is for sale today.
For how much?
42
That's
million.
42 million
both
for
parks.
That's
Are we
both-
talking,
Yeah, 15.5 for one and 26.5 for another.
is this entire conversation about both parks together?
Yes.
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 Okay.
42
2
million.
million. The goal was to raise a minimum of 5 for what, or 5 per park, or 5
total.
5
total.
Yeah.
5 per park. As kind of that down payment on the mortgages for Thistle Rock to be able to lend the balance for the purchase of the parks. The goal of the jurisdictions was to raise more than that as that capital contribution so that the mortgage rate, the amount financed would be less. They're trying to get it to the lowest amount financed possible with the funds being raised.
So, okay, so the coalition ultimately is going to need $42 million. They feel like with 20 million being given via these municipal and other grants, right? That A, they can secure the lending for $42 million. And because it's only a loan essentially then of 22 million, their rents, right, in order to pay off that $22 million loan versus having to pay off a $42 million loan, their rents are then therefore stabilized to a happy enough place.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So they're looking, so then. Okay, so they're looking to raise at least $20 million. Or that's their goal. I'm sure it's a sliding scale, but if they get 10, then whatever. They've raised 5 so far? 11. Okay. And then
With the
ours would
ones
be
that are confirmed.
confirmed is about 11 million. We're another just 6 figures into the bucket. But at the very least, they're hoping they can get enough to put the T's out there to at least get them off the market, perhaps temporarily, that they could then have some reprieve to go out and find the rest of the 20 million.
Yeah, and I think what's important here is 20 million was the goal, but the residents know, just like the residents of our own mobile home
Sliding
park
scale,
and saw the
yeah.
pro forma, what will happen if they only get 5, if they only get 10. Thistle and Rock are going to do the lending on the rest. You know, we've arrived at a point that they're comfortable. So they'll make an offer, and then everything fundraising. And I mean, this community is doing garage sales currently to just, we're pulling together everything that they can. And so everything after that will then help their mortgage to not be, if it's only $20 million in subsidies that come, that's still the mortgage that they're going to have through Thistle and Rock. It's going to be a significant increase on their current lot rent. Granted, they're going to be part of the ownership, so that's good, but it's still a financial burden. So everything after that is aimed at funding that money so that their mortgage payment is lower.
Okay. And when will they know if the 11 million is enough of a tease or enough of a, is enough to, for some reason, have this current buyer withdraw?
Their closing date is the same as the one here. I think they might actually be like a couple days offset for their window to make an offer. So that's where all these commitment letters are coming, and Thistle and Rock is collecting them. To my knowledge, they're already committed to making that funding and the offer. I think it will change depending on the final amounts that come in of what it looks like, but Thistle is already gearing up to make that gap loan so that they can make that offer to match.
Okay.
So at the end of the 120-day period that they have, which is August 5th, the first week of August.
9.
Thank you. Did I include it in there? Look
You
at
did. Of course you did. All right. Thank you, Hannah.
All right, thank you. Counselor Schechter.
I'll try and make this a question. It might help. I haven't seen the Thistle pro forma, but I've chatted with coalition members. And again, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong as a question, Hannah, Thistle, just like our lot, has not committed to loan the entire amount. So approximately 32 or 33 million is a loan commitment from Thistle. The other 10 of the 20 is the minimum amount that they feel is necessary to make a competitive bid at 42-ish versus the other bidder, which the seller does not have to accept. Anything above that is cushion either for bidding and or future suppression of the rent increases that are inevitable, whether Thistle buys them or a competitor. But if Thistle, Rock, and the co-op purchase it, there will be increases. The amount of dollars above that purchase price will keep the rent increases from going too high. So we've got I think a 32 million, a 10 million, and another 10 million kind of chunks, as I understand what's happened. Does that seem reasonable? That's my question.
So much today.
Just say yes.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, I think that they have to make the offer by August 9th. They have at least the 11 million or so in commitments.
In addition
So-
to the loan.
So they can move forward on making the offer. It's a question of whether that offer is going to be sufficient and how much more they can buy down the potential mortgage if they receive additional commitments up to that $20 million target.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
So if I understand correctly, they have enough money to now start the negotiation.
Yes. They have a real amount that makes it feasible to make an offer.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Schmall.
So in this scenario, we don't have the ability to secure the money based on the loan like we are with the Mountain Mobile Park.
We could, I don't know if we're at 6 figures, I don't know that it is, we're not really a big enough player to make that. Yeah, there are $3.5 million contributions being made. We could certainly ask about it, but I guess if I were them, I'm not sure the kind of restrictions that we have on the $1.5 million on the park that we're going to talk about next.
And if we
Would
consider,
really be-
if we consider $100,000 to be just a, complimentary sort of thing, then maybe 25,000 is also complimentary.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't suggesting that it was complimentary. I was suggesting that we're very far down on the list of how much is being contributed. And so from the standpoint of what's our position, if I look at it strictly as a lender, we would be very, very junior on that 100,000. That was kind of my point.
And my concern is that in spite of all of the best efforts, there's still going to be significant rent increases for the residents of these parks, in spite of all of the money that's getting put into them, even in the best case. And we're talking about an extra 20 million to buy down the rents to the point where we hope they're tolerable. And they may not be still.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
This probably straddles question versus comment, but I'll put it forth as a question. What are we going to do when other people start coming to us and going, okay, my taxes went up on my house in Glenwood. My taxes went up on my house in Carbondale. You know, this may make me not be able to stay here. You know, this may make me have to move somewhere and go somewhere else. How do we answer those questions? You know, because they're going to come up once we start making a habit of giving money to people to make it easier for them to live here. What's our answer going to be from economic development to those people?
My answer would actually be more from Workforce Housing Advisory Board as opposed to economic development, though that does contribute. You know, we've been rolling out different programs, and we have the strategic plan that we're going off of that identifies what we want to go after to cover all manner of let's call it housing stability. So we've rolled out our rental assistance pilot program that is currently operational. We've rolled out our down payment assistance program with grant funding. And we have more programs that we're looking at to assist with a variety of home ownership and or rental. So those are definitely programs outcoming that we're identifying what the capacity is of the fund, the 2C tax fund that generates every year, and looking at other creative ideas to cover, just like you said, a variety of things for all kind of housing stability. We're looking at everyone's housing stability, mostly within Glenwood Springs for the 2C. This one is a slightly different one from the general fund for the regional approach, but we might not have the program yet, but we're definitely open to hearing ideas. And you know, there's security for seniors who are on fixed incomes. That's definitely been a topic of conversation as well. So we might not have the program now, but we are looking to create a variety of programs within our budgeting to assist more people. That is truly the goal of that funding that the public passed, is to assist as many people as possible with limited funds. And I know that's what you guys are discussing now, because every little piece is a piece of the pie. That would be my answer.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, we will. Any other questions? See none at this point. Thank you, Hannah. Well, let's turn it over to the public. Anybody have any comments on this? Online? No, we'll see none. We'll close the public portion. I'll bring it back to council. What's on the table is, are we interested in contributing $100,000? So I am entertaining a motion to move forward in item 11. Councilor Schacht.
To get to comments and additional discussion, I would move in action item 11 that we do approve $100,000 contribution / grant to the coalition as our contribution of goodwill to the potential purchase, if successful, of these mobile home parks.
Thank you. Councilor Zawinski.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Councilor Schacht.
Thank you. All the questions are valid. And I think Councilor Townsley's was valid. I'm looking at this from a bigger point of view, and on $100,000 by no means is trivial, but this is one of our highest priorities and the Valley's, and we're behind the 8 ball by many years. And for both upstream and downstream communication, I think our participation, with the assurance that we can afford it, is a huge goodwill gesture that says, yes, we support this conceptually, and we support the partnership in the Valley that's being developed with this coalition for current and potentially future benefits. So for that reason, I support this strongly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Small.
I really like the idea and would really like to help. But I have a real problem with the slippery slope of where else are going to be the requests. I think we've made a pretty significant investment already in the Western Regional Housing Coalition, and the funds indicating our intention for that help and for that regional cooperation. I know we've got 8 other parks around here that are going to be coming, and eventually, at the rate we're going, we're going to have to say no altogether. So I'd rather when we get our own area taken care of first. The big contributions that are being made are from the big benefactors on the 2 that we're talking about right now.
Thank you. Councilor Zelinski.
So I'm taking all this into consideration. I mean, yeah, there may come a day where we can't say yes. However, costs continue to go up, opportunities continue to evaporate. There's a lot of times that we look at our scenario and go, gosh, if we only had foresight, we could have headed something off. I feel like this is an opportunity for us to recognize that, if those folks can't live in the Mid-Valley, they're going to end up living west, and they're going to need to pass through our town. And so, looking at these things in a regional manner, I think helps us have a much greater impact on the larger problems, and partner with our adjoining communities. And so I think there's a pretty compelling argument to be made for our participation in this. $100,000 is pretty nominal in the grand scheme of things, for the benefit that poses itself. So I think, for those reasons, I would be in support of this motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Smith.
Thank you. In the staff report, both last discussion and again for this discussion, the staff highlighted 2 basic reasons why we should be doing something out of town. One, that Councilor Zelinski just eloquently described, the potential for displaced workers and the resulting effect on our town of commuters or just not having homes. The other one was this spirit of cooperation with a regional effort that may turn around and again help people here if we're good partners. I think that part, both arguments to me are compelling in different ways. This one is particularly compelling because for a relatively nominal amount of money, $100,000 is big money, but in the context of 42 million, it's a nominal way to keep ourselves in the partnership. By my count, I appreciate Councilor Schmall's highlighting others in the wings. By my count, I find 11 manufactured home parks that are either in Glenwood Springs or are close enough that they're within the economic and travel and commerce sphere of influence of Glenwood Springs, ranging from Amy's Acres, a true trailer park, to Buffalo Valley. And I would include Cavern Springs at the College Turn off of Highway 82, on which an unsolicited open market bid has already been submitted, seeking to buy those 98 homes for $26 million. Those folks are scrambling too. They are definitely people who work and shop here. So that one's already coming up on the edge of the table. But the other 10, as Councilor Small says, may soon be coming to our table. I would love to combine those 2 factors, that we know that starting from the base notion that I believe that this is an excellent idea, is saving these parks and the form of housing and the relative affordability of them. If we want to do that, I'd suggest that we need to leverage our little $100,000 and plus an active inventory of our own potential needs to take right back to whether it's this ad hoc coalition or to West Mountain itself and say, all right, we got 10, 11 more coming up. And let's get organized about it. And whether they respond or not right away, I would really like to ask staff to do a comprehensive inventory of what homes are available and may be threatened around here. I would start with those 11 parks. I'm happy to put that in the form of an amendment to this motion. But if it's just a simple request that staff finds reasonable to put together a thinking ahead plan, rather than waiting for these $20-40 million crises to come up one at a time, let's get ahead of it and see which parks we might want to go help buy now before they get on the market. I don't know that's my idea. Should it be proposed as just a suggestion to staff, or should it be posed as part of the motion? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Townsley.
I think my comment on this would be, I understand the requests from staff and whatnot, that this would help make your lives easier as you talk back and forth up and down the valley. You know, you answered my question saying, well, we've got the 2C money and we've got different programs that we're looking there. I don't feel that it's appropriate to take money out of the general fund for subsidizing somebody's rent that's not even, you know, even here in Glenwood, taking money out of the general fund to subsidize rents and make it more affordable for people. I just don't feel that that's necessarily a government's job and place to do that. And I certainly, you know, you say you can come up with 100,000. I totally believe you. I think that's good. But again, we get to that slippery slope, like Councilman Schmall talked about, of like, where is it going to stop? Where does it keep coming? So I think setting that precedent would make me, you know, if there was a way to do this with 2C money, there's not much left in there, but if you wanted to do it with that somehow and there was a way to restructure it, I could be in favor of that. But taking money out of the general fund to make something more affordable for a particular group of people, when there's people, you know, all up and down Carbondale, Basalt, Willits, that are probably struggling to make their mortgage payments, their rent payments. I just don't think that's a valid use of our general fund.
Thank you. Councillor Schacht.
Two things. One, regarding Councillor Smith, I would not amend the motion at this point. I think that's a reasonable request of staff, and I happen to know that under Hannah's direction, there's been an inventory of our mobile home parks, partly for this purpose. It's gone on for several years. We know the ownership. Bear in mind, none of this probably happens without somebody like Thistle Rock. It's not like the city's going to go in and buy one. We can do targets, and there are ways with Thistle to engage and actually sometimes act as agents to organizing, which is difficult. So I would continue a reasonable request, say, how can we leverage and facilitate this with what we already know in a proactive manner with our 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 homes. That's I think critical. So I wouldn't amend the motion. I think that complicates the issue. The only other thing I'd address, and I hear resistance and I understand it, I don't look at this, if we approve this, I don't feel that our main intent here is to subsidize the rent of people that do not live in Glenwood. That may be an end result. I'm hearing our intent is to participate and encourage our willingness to be part of a valley-wide coalition who we may also ask for support in the future with an amount that is significant enough to show our goodwill, but not significant enough to impede us in future acquisitions.
Thank you. Any more discussion from council? I see none. My take on this is basically what you just said. I don't think this is our help to reduce rents, to keep rents where they are, to keep lot rents wherever they are, mortgages. I think this is simply to make a statement that we are part of the deal. We are part of the coalition. Glenwood wants to be part of the coalition. We want to be at the table. When this happens in our town, we want to be at the table when it's in other towns. And since it's out of the general fund, I feel like if if deals do come up in our town, we do have the 2C fund that is there for that. So with Steve assuring us that $100,000 out of the general fund is okay, I would support that. And he did that earlier today. And like I said, I think the partnership is what matters more in this than the actual outcome of the rents in our case. And with that, I will actually call the question.
Counselor Townsley, no. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, yes. Mayor Dame, yes. Counselor Weimer, yes. Counselor Schmal, no. Counselor Smith, yes. Counselor Schachter, yes. It passes 5-2.
Thank you, Ryan. Moving on to item 12, Mountain Mobile Home Park, the funding conditions. We're going to keep Hannah there, but we're going to invite Carla.
Yeah, pushing the button all the time is. So what you have in front of you is 2 council meetings ago, I believe it was, that you guys gave direction to come back with some documentation on $1.5 million loan on the Mountain Mobile Home Park. At the work session last meeting, I gave you a draft deed restriction, kind of talked through the concept on how we were proposing to have that transaction worked for the benefit of the public. I'll run through real quick. The idea is that this is a loan of 1.5 million. That loan is due and payable only in the occurrence of 2 events of default underneath the loan agreement, or if there is a sale to a non-housing nonprofit, essentially, that the city would get its money back. Effectively, what our goal here is to make sure it maintains its status as owner, an owner-owned community, and that along with that, there is a deed restriction that I think is really going to be the focus of the conversation tonight, because those other documents are really just driven by the language in the deed restriction. That deed restriction would provide that in perpetuity, those units would have to first be offered to Glenwood Workforce, as that is defined in our affordable housing guidelines, which has 3 tiers to it, as you guys will recall. It's inside the city limits. It's 81601, and then within 30 miles of the city. So kind of a cascade and that's consistent with our current code and guidelines on affordable housing. After handing that out and after the packet went out, I did get some input back from Councilor Smith and Townsley, and I thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. As a result of that, I made a couple of changes to the deed restriction, and I don't know if we can project it or not. Yeah, the red line that I did. Give me 2 minutes. Sorry. So essentially the changes that I'm suggesting making to that from what is in your packet, based on Councilor Smith and Townsley, are eliminating the low income category, so that it would just be that moderate income at 130% of AMI. And Hannah can walk you through how that relates to, say, posted city jobs currently, in terms of just like our organization, how that 130%, what that would look like. The other one is that, and I think Councilor Smith, it was a great suggestion on being more explicit about owner occupied. So including a definition of owner occupied, and then making that one of those perpetual conditions is that it be an owner occupied, the deed restriction, those units be owner occupied. Other conditions of that deed restriction are that that it is no STRs. Sorry, I'm just Peter, so I can look at my notes. Oh, good. Sorry. And I'm trying to think what others. It's kind of the big ones from what you have in your packet. I will say that since that went out in the packet, we did have Thistle also reviewed this, had no substantive changes to the document whatsoever. A couple of clarifying language and a comma here or there, the usual stuff. So on that front, I think they're going to be fine with these additions that I'm suggesting to you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions. The other documents, like I said, they really flow from this one, so that I'm going to have to, once we get to where you want this deed restriction, those other documents, if you just, if you're inclined to approve the documents as a package, just suggest that Steve and I and Hannah finalize the flow through from the deed restriction. So.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Before we get to questions, is there anything Hannah wants to show quick? And
When the wheel of death stops.
yep, explain about the AMI.
Kind of last minute revisions, so I didn't have this prepared to pull up, but it will, so that we can go and you can see all the revisions Carl made it as part of your comments. I just pulled together a few things if you guys want to look at salaries and AMI comparison and job listings. I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, can City of Glenwood Springs employees afford these or, you know, have preference, which I know has been discussion, not just with this sale, but a lot of the things that we do. Obviously, since we are the major funder here.
Salaries.
Your red line.
Why don't we do salaries?
Okay. So I just pulled today because I thought maybe you guys would like the information. These are all job postings from today and what the amount is and then what that equates to as far as AMI and then also what it equates to in your buying power for an affordable home. There's a lot of caveats in this, so I will go over the assumptions made with some of this math. And make sure that you guys can actually see this because this is not in your packet. This was just some additional information. So we've got just kind of a list that I pulled today of some jobs. You can see the salary and then what that equates to. I used just a one-person household. So if there's two earners in a household, you know, double that amount if they've got the same job. And then you can see over here what that AMI actually looks like when we talk about, for this purpose, up to 120% AMI. So some pretty basic jobs that are out there, they go up in order here. And then I've also highlighted some of our own city job postings so you can see kind of a comparison of what those are currently listed at. Obviously, there's ranges for our hiring, and you can see, again, what those equate to in area median income to give you an idea really of what salaries are out there and what that means when you're looking at the CHAFA rent and income limits. So you can see we've got a swath of postings right now that do go up to, for one of our police officer positions, up to the 120% AMI mark. Again, these are hiring ranges. So those positions have different salary ranges for when someone stays longer. But for most of this, you know, it's your qualifying income at time of purchase that we're looking at. So you guys can view that. And then I also dropped it down just for fun because I love spreadsheets. An hourly wage, what that equates to on an annual salary, what that equates to an area median income. And then over here, I equated what that income household would be able to afford for a home. That's an assumption of 6% interest rate, 10% down, and a modest $400 a month in debt. You can play around with these mortgage calculators. The one that I use is from Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. That will spit you out what's considered affordable to that house. So the reason why I didn't do it on this side, you know, up to the $30 an hour is because that's just not, we're getting into low numbers that we don't have that inventory here. So I started, you can see at the $64,500 annual salary, which is 87% area median income. An affordable home price with the aforementioned assumptions is $220,586. That's if you're a single person. If you've got more income, obviously you can just go down in the numbers here. If you're a household that's earning $104,000 together, that's 141% AMI for a one-person household. It's closer to the 100% AMI for a two-person household. But you're looking at being able to afford $355,800. Obviously, if you have a much larger down payment, and Councillor Townsley, you can probably speak to this much higher, those numbers are going to change. Your purchasing power fluctuates a lot. That's why I wanted to be very clear on the assumptions. But with a look at today's average mobile home price in Glenwood, there's currently 4 listings. It's around $322,000. So you can see for a single person, you already need to be at around 120% AMI to be able to afford that with those assumptions. This is a lot of data, but I wanted to be able to kind of take these numbers that we're always talking about and give you a real world example of what this looks like.
I think the other thing that I was hoping Hannah could address too is the reason why we both kind of feel like having some kind of an upper AMI cap is important in terms of maintaining who's in the mix, because obviously without any kind of an AMI cap on who's in the mix, somebody who has this chart really illustrates that the more buying power you have, the easier it is for you to acquire that. And so in order to keep them in that range, I feel like an AMI cap of some sort is going to be important, or else they're going to drift out of affordability for those kind of that target audience I think that we're looking at, which is those entry-level workers, entry-level police officers, things like that. So I think that it's important to recognize whether that's at 130 or 140, but unlimited, not having any kind of an AMI cap, I think is really opening us up that it goes someplace we weren't intending if we don't have some kind of a limit on that. And then if you want to flip back to document. So I apologize. This is going to look a little messy because it has a couple of edits from Thistle as well as some work that I did on it today. But I just wanted to be able to. Does it want to open for you? Or maybe you don't get to see it.
It's working on it.
And it's technology. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe not. Those are what I described are the main components of change. Owner-occupied requirement, and then, dropping that lower income category and just capping it at the 130. And I did want to speak to an aspirational piece that Councillor Smith asked to be put in, and I'm going to explain why I didn't. Which is Councillor Smith really wanted to see either a requirement or aspirational language around improving sort of the sustainability components of these units. And while I think that's a hugely important thing to do over time, on a deed restriction, I'd rather avoid aspirational language. And I question the requirement of that. I just had a lengthy discussion with another housing group around whether or not sustainability is appropriately plugged in and has a negative impact on affordability. You can argue over time that it is better, but the reality is at the time of purchase and oftentimes in the moment, requiring that uptick on those factors on sustainability doesn't really help. There are other ways for us to accomplish that I think if we really want to pursue those are better. I'd use by way of example what they call the Green Deed program in Crested Butte, which is like kind of a style a lot like the rebate programs you're familiar with, except on steroids around improving insulation and windows and things like that. And so there are mechanisms where we might want to do that, but I just don't know that plugging it into this deed restriction is the appropriate place for that policy choice. So that's why I didn't include any language. Oh, there we go. All right. So, yep. All right. So where you'll see changes is in the definitions, dropping low income, including a definition of owner occupied, which is a fairly standard one, which means that the qualified owner or owner who resides at a home a minimum of 9 months per calendar year. Qualified owner drops the lower income or low income and is just a moderate income or a member of the Glenwood workforce. But they just added some clarifying language on senior lender. There again, as we scroll through this, same thing, dropping the reference to low income, including in the purposes that homes remain owner occupied. And keeping in mind, all of the capitalized words are in the definitions up above. Acknowledging that it binds the property. And then as we scroll down, just there again, flow through on that language change. And we had missed on the lease opportunity, including end workforce. So that's just a cleanup on my part. And then including short-term and owner-occupied, that at no time shall a home or a lot be used for purposes of short-term rental. At all times, the home shall be owner-occupied as defined above. So those are the changes from what is in your packet. And then the other red lines, like I said, are clarifications from Thistle as the lender, as the first.
Okay, thank you. Lots of information. Bring it back to council for questions to staff at this point. Start with Councilor Townsley.
So you kind of answered my question, so it's gonna, I'm gonna stray away from comments, but I'll try to put it back to you as a question. So my initial question would have been, why are you keeping any cap in there at all for AMI? And you've kind of addressed that, but when I pulled, and I think we've basically got the same charts, but I pulled the AMI stuff for Garfield County, and in looking at what Hannah put up there. So if Ryan gets a new city clerk and she's married to a police officer, the two of them would be ineligible to purchase one of these homes.
What the AMI
It is. I mean, you know,
and it may be
120% is 101,000. So it seems to me like we're really capping out. If 2C was for affordable housing, not for low income housing, and it's for workforce housing, why? I mean, we're keeping by purchasing this and helping them purchase this, we're creating more affordable housing. So why cap out where some of our workforce can get into it?
And I guess what I'd suggest is that if 130 doesn't feel like the right number, 120 or 130, maybe that number is 160. But I do feel like if you don't have any kind of an AMI cap, then your most competitive bids on those units will probably be from folks who maybe are well outside of that. And I'm not sure that's the target Glenwood workforce with this particular housing, keeping in mind that we have a wide array of housing products out there, from the condos at L3 to, Lytech at the very low end. So trying to think about where it fits in that larger picture and puzzle of all the different products that we have available. So, but obviously that's a choice for council on whether you want to have a cap in there or not.
I think one thing, when I saw some of the comments, that I also wanted to point out, in our strategic plan for the Workforce Housing Advisory Board, we have the AMIs that we want to serve most stipulated there, and it's from 50% AMI up to 150% AMI, recognizing that our area, due to expenses and salaries, having that 150% AMI, because we wanted to get up to, when we're thinking about workforce, that does grasp those. That is relatively new to the affordable housing arena, that we would go so high. Those conversations are happening at the state legislative level as well currently, to see about rural resort communities having a higher AMI threshold, because, as you've mentioned and just rightly pointed out, 120% AMI doesn't get you very far in this valley anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. So that's from a Workforce Housing Advisory Board 2C fund perspective. That's the AMI range that we have identified and council approved in the strategic plan. So I just wanted to point that out.
Maybe 150 is the right. Like I said, I think some number is appropriate. I don't know what number is, and obviously, if council doesn't think any number is appropriate, that's your policy call. So,
thank you, Councilor Small.
Have the co-op members reviewed these terms? Does anybody? Not yet.
They'll loop around through Thistle to, I think, is the hand down on the terms. I mean, really, from our standpoint, we wanted to make sure that the lender in the first was okay with it. The other thing I would say is that it's really your document. These are the terms that you guys told us that we should be looking at. So that's kind of from my perspective, it's got to be a document. It's nice that the first position was okay with it, but I really want to make sure you as a council are okay.
That was all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Zelinski.
So kind of going back to the percentage AMI, I think, would it be fair to say that if we as a council decided to just like bump up that AMI, recognizing that we're in a resort community, that also benefits the current owners, because then they have a broader market if they did need to sell their unit or.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that that higher AMI does give you a broader range of choices without question as a seller.
And that still very comfortably addresses our workforce.
It does. I think it still is in line, like the 150 is still in line with what, your 2C advisory group is recommending.
Could you, I'm sorry, I can't remember your chart. Could you pull up again what 150 AMI would look like for a 1 or a 2-person household? You have it
It's 111,000
for one?
for one and 126,000 for two. I think my numbers are a couple thousand. off.
Yeah.
It's just
Nope.
switch.
Thank you.
chart,
for that.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
They're all pretty much the same.
Thank you. Counselor Weimer.
This is a 99-year covenant, is that right?
Yes.
Can a future council lift a covenant, lift
Yeah,
a restriction?
absolutely. With the agreement of the parties. There's nothing, you can't forever bind a future council. You and the property owner and as long as the first is out there, would have to agree to it.
Who would need to agree
Um,
outside of council?
Outside of council, it would have to be the owner of the property as well as,
So that's Thistle?
that's the Rock, the resident.
Yeah, okay, yep.
That would be the Rock. Those would be the two primary that would have to agree to it.
Okay.
The Thistle, as the lender, will also have a set of covenants on the property that will impact it similarly. But as far as our covenant, the owner and the city could agree to lift it at some point in the future. That same thing with, you could decide, a future council could decide that those provisions of that loan agreement, which are that it accrues interest for 30 years, but only becomes due and payable if there is a transfer of default, you could decide to, at some point in the future, forgive that loan. Don't know what the tax implications of that would be, which is one of the upsides to the structure is there, as long as everything goes along as we expect, there isn't, under current tax law, there isn't a tax event as far as that loan forgiveness, which I think is an upside to the structure. So that's kind of it.
Counselor Schachter.
Thank you. A question, two questions. One, piggybacking off Counselor Zelinski. Let's assume 150 AMI instead of 130. My understanding is none of this affects the true ability for the current owners to sell. What it does do is maybe make, within that 45-day period, easier for one of our employees to make a qualifying bid, but it's not a binding bid. It's still going to be a market value situation. They just get priority should they meet the seller's criteria. Is that?
Yeah,
Yes.
within that first
Right.
45 days. So there isn't, there's a relief valve at the end of that 45 days.
And the other question, I hope it's not just an observation. Correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like what you've digested here, based on our input, is also fairly highly consistent with the current restrictions on the park as it operates right now, in terms of owner occupied, no short-term rentals, upkeep, maintenance, et cetera. We're not making a huge diversion from what currently exists, but it's also consistent with what we were requesting.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, as I understand it. I think the couple of big changes are that priority period on sale. That's really a large measure of what you're getting, along with ensuring that it stays in the form that it, they're anticipating going into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, for those additional last-minute charts.
I got the AMIs up. Do you want to keep them or shall I go back to your beautiful faces for everyone to see?
Well, if 150's on there, I think it'd be important to see, but I don't think it's on.
So it
there.
actually doesn't go up to 150.
Yeah.
Chaffaa only goes to 120, but 150 for a 2-person household using quick math is 126,750, and the 111 that Counselor Townsley mentioned for a 1-person household.
Okay.
nice segue to my question. Could you please make those charts you extracted today and showed to us? Could you send us copies of the AMI charts and the sample sale listings and stuff? And if it's agreeable, your Councilor Townsley might make his available to headquarters so it could be sent to us too. I think it's going to be helpful background material for a lot of future discussion.
No, I think that's great. I mean, they're updated, the, HUD and JAPA update theirs every year. So they're,
That'll just give me a place to know where to look for it because I'll have an example.
yeah, I think we can probably send you actually links so that you know where it's at instead of a static document.
Thank you. And then on the little bit of a comment. Thank you for affirming my sense that out of all these documents, the restrictive covenant is kind of the key one.
Yes.
That's the one where I spent the most time, so I'm glad I was in the right place. And in doing that, I found a word I want to ask about in the third whereas and third line. The whereas declares that we're seeking to assure that this park remain primarily a resident-owned manufactured home community. Is there significance to the word primarily?
I don't think so, and it can be dropped, certainly. That honestly kind of borrowed some of that language from the deal that was done at Golden. So I don't have any, pride in, I need the word to be in there.
Good. It felt like a potential future loophole, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it provides a loophole given the rest of the document, but I'm happy to delete it.
Great, thank you.
Need to. Sorry, just making a note to myself here so I don't forget to.
Do we need to have?
I'm sorry, I missed it. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Hang on, just a sec. I'm preparing myself for the executive session. I'm terribly sorry. Everybody was kind of just sitting like it's fine. It's like a quiet moment. That's awesome. Any other questions from council of the staff at this point? We'll see none. Thank you, guys. Anybody from the public like to come forward? Comment on this item? Yeah, state your name and whether you live in city limits or not. And I neglected to say it earlier, but you got 3 minutes.
No problem. I'm Sam Philbin, and I'm the president of the cooperative at Glen Valley Cooperative.
Thank you.
Part of that stuff, we haven't even looked at all this yet, but what's your recommendation? Our regular rules that we're working on does state that it has to be owner occupied, full year round. We can rent a room out if you live there, but you cannot rent the whole trailer out. And keeping up on the park, and we have all the rules to do that, making sure it stays nice and good. And in our covenants too, or whatever it is, the rules, it will stay manufactured homes, and that will not change. And we even talked about the size of them. It would stay in the same footprint. So we're all along the same lines on that. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand we're on the same page. Okay, thank you very much.
May I ask you a quick question? Right here, while you're up front.
Hi.
Did you, I think last time there was an 80% buy-in at this point. Did you have any more homeowners buy into the program, to the co-op?
Out of 39, because you can't count the owner, there's 5 that haven't.
Out of how many?
39, 5.
39, there's 5 that have not.
So it's more than 80%.
Right.
So,
Are you talking to them that they should, or?
They've gone to meet, and they're going to be invited to our big meeting.
Okay.
Which we're trying to set down the date to, once we get all our budget figured out and all that. They will be invited, and they can still come to the meetings, but unless they join, they don't have a vote.
Right.
And we have all that paperwork too, and numbers, what they have to.
That's all set up.
So, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you.
So we're waiting to see what the final monthly thing is gonna be.
Right, I hear you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Anybody else from the public? Like,
Citizen
My citizen, yes, I am.
of Glenwood.
Yes, I've lived in Glenwood
Okay.
for,
Thank you.
he missed it. That's okay. Thank you.
Missed
All good.
I might not have said it. I apologize.
Sorry.
Anybody else from the public like to come forward? Anybody online? No? I'll see none. We'll close the public portion. I'll bring it back to the commission. And I'm entertaining a motion in item 12, a Mountain Mobile Home Park funding conditions. Counselor Schachter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding item 12, Mountain Mobile Home Park, also maybe known as Glen Valley, I would move that we do approve the drafted documents that have been presented to us with two changes. The moderate income definition go to 150% AMI. And the single word deletion is noted by Commissioner Smith. Otherwise, I would move that we approve as presented.
Would you give the manager and the attorney discretion to make final necessary changes to the documents?
Necessary changes in order to make sure that this meets the subordination requirements and whatever legal requirements are necessary.
Thank you for the motion, and Counselor Townsley.
To get it to discussion, I would second that.
Okay, excellent. We have a second. Any discussion? Counselor Townsley.
I hate to be a bug in the ointment here. I'm really not trying to be. I think this is a great project. I still wonder, when we've got it's a right of first refusal. It's a 45-day period. I think Councilor Zelinski was saying, does this open it up and make a bigger window? Anybody could still come in. All we're saying is that we want to, if somebody wants to come in, pay open market on that. I don't think that we're going to have somebody that comes in that's at 150 or 200% of AMI that's making $200,000 or $300,000 a year and say, this is a piece of property I'm going to buy. So to take any chance at all of limiting to workforce housing people, that it's pretty reasonable. A lot of people in town make $75,000, $80,000. To put a cap on them when we could have that in there versus tell them you don't have an option to have this first right of refusal on a 2C funded house. I just don't think that makes sense. I don't think that you're just limiting yourself. I mean, what happens if those two people come and want to buy that house and they can't buy it because we've set that cap on there? To me, it doesn't make sense that we do that. And then the other piece of it is going back to the ballot language that passed 2C. There's nothing in there about affordable housing, or excuse me, there's nothing in there about income limits on housing. It's affordable housing, which is what we're helping to create here. So I don't think we want to go back and bust that out. So I think at some point along the line, I would be more in favor of making an amendment. Or I pulled out my initial pieces here because I've never made an amendment, but to say that we just take that language out altogether, because I think we're just taking a chance on hurting ourselves without giving ourselves any benefit.
And just to be specific, so we understand, you want to take out the 150 AMI.
I want to get rid of the AMI stuff on there and just go, let's give right of first refusal to the residents the way we've got it. And why take a chance on capping ourselves out of somebody that's qualified, that wants to buy that, that they both work in the city, or they both work for another employer. If you took two nurses and put them together, they wouldn't be able to get in there.
So I think the amendment, if offered, would be to eliminate the moderate income requirement throughout the documents.
Period.
I'm making an amendment.
No, he's asking.
I don't know if I can do that until the rest of the discussion's up.
Well, you just said I offer a friendly amendment and then see what happens, and then we keep discussing, but.
Okay.
Now, do I respond at this point?
You can respond at this point, yes. Just let me see if I can find you, since we're talking about the motion here. Come on, Councilor Schachter, please.
Given our intent and the discussion and the rationale, I'd be willing to amend the motion.
Okay, now we need an amended second, and that would be Councilor Townsley. And I just turned you off, so I got you. You're gonna have to click again, please. I'll find you here. The screen is very small. Councillor Townsley, please.
So I would amend the amendment that Councillor Shackner put forward by striking any of the language that deals with AMI.
Okay, thank you. And we will move, everybody understands the motion at this point over discussion, right? Okay, excellent. Councillor Small, sorry. Actually, push again, please. When everybody wants to talk, the screen gets really small. So, okay, Councillor Small, please.
I actually think Councillor Townsley needed to second
The amendment.
Councillor
He did.
Oh, did you feel like you seconded? Okay. I agree with the amendment. It's going to be difficult enough. This co-op group is going to be challenged. It's going to be a tough row to hoe, and we don't want to make it any more difficult for them than what's necessary. So not having someone who's able to sell their unit is going to discourage anyone else from wanting to have a unit. And that's a real disincentive for their potential success. And I really don't want to indirectly encourage job deflation, which is what in reality we're doing by going by the chaff and numbers that are derived from the rest of the state that are significantly different for our area. So with that, I support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Solinsky.
So I'm gonna have to ask a question because I think I need this explained to me. If we take out any cap on AMI, what does that do to deed restriction? How are those separate from each other?
So with the AMI eliminated, the deed restriction would be, from our standpoint, our deed restriction would be Glenwood Workforce gets first priority for that 45-day period. And then as a backstop from what you just heard from the ownership group, owner occupied, no STRs. That's primarily what this deed restriction would be doing at this point. It just would not have any kind of an income cap. I don't know. I know that Thistle will have a similar restriction. I don't know if theirs will include any kind of an AMI cap or not, but I can't control that.
So are we putting in any guardrails to maintain affordability?
I think
Accessibility. I know we have to we've debated that word ad nauseum, but at the end of the day, market rate, as we have seen in all properties in our community, become unaffordable if allowed to just go supply and demand. So I'm just hoping that we are seeing both sides of this action.
Yeah. And I guess what I would say, and maybe to articulate both sides of the coin, because I appreciate Councillor Townsley's perspective on this, is that with an AMI cap in that first 45 days, if there is a buyer that meets that, we have met that affordability piece. But if after that 45 days, because they can't find somebody, then we have lost the Glenwood Workforce piece until the next sale comes up. Without that AMI cap in, I mean, there probably is a greater likelihood that a Glenwood Workforce would be potentially found in that 45 days than without. So I think you're kind of balancing to affordability and workforce are at a little bit of tension here. But when you roll past 45 days, it could be anything.
Yeah, when I first moved out here, I lived in Aspen, and I lived in an ADU that was built on the back of a mobile home or a manufactured home up in the base of Smuggler there. And at that time, I'm thinking about how much those properties went for. I was working in Aspen and making great money. There's no way I could have afforded, so I just want to make sure that we're not falling into a pitfall of unintended consequences. I want to make sure that, the people who've invested in that community have every opportunity to gain from their investment, but also that we aren't accidentally creating a scenario where we are eliminating accessibility to workforce housing.
If I can also add to that component, this is a constant discussion with affordable housing, and really great points on both sides. This is constantly the battle, like where do you put that threshold? And I think, you know, I can value both sides of this, having the AMI there for specific reasons and not having it there for other very valuable reasons. You know, when we talk about mobile home parks and why we've placed this as a priority, is they're naturally at a lower price point than our average home sale price. We're creeping up on $1 million is our average home sale price in Glenwood Springs, which is shocking. And obviously mobile home park prices have increased along with that, but they are still a third of the price of that average. So without an AMI cap, really you're still maintaining a lot of the value and the benefit that's seen here. It's just that there will be a little bit of, you know, wiggle room with competition. But as Councillor Townsley has mentioned, and we have mentioned on some of our other programs as well, such as the buy down, there's a little bit of self-selection here of, you know, if you're in the 200,000, not 200,000, 200% AMI, you are at a level where you might be able to enter the market rate housing. And so you will probably be looking for that. Whereas someone that's below that is looking for this product specifically. So I can see the value of both. And I just wanted you guys to let you know that that is our belief and Workforce Housing Advisory Board's belief as well. The main goal is to preserve this as manufactured home, mobile home park, and the owner occupancy and some of the things that they already have really does get to those benefits. So I think whatever you guys decide on that front, there are values, and that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Hannah. Councilor Schachter.
Well, I had to think about this. My original motion would have kept the AMI. My understanding, and number one, we're not in a position to put a deed restriction and hurt the current owners. If the primary lender chooses to do that, that's basically out of our control, but that's not the intent. I believe it's to enhance some equity and opportunity. We haven't done anything to eliminate first shot at Glenwood workforce housing. All we've done is perhaps make more opportunity for more employees, and without designating that we want the lowest paid employees to get the housing. And once that 45-day period is over, the listing price will rule. And during that 45-day period, the listing price will rule. So I think given the variety of factors, we're probably still doing the right thing for the most people without the AMI.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
First, thank you very much to staff for considering the comments that I put in. It's very gratifying because of my enthusiasm for owner occupancy in general in the community, that it gets a bit of it is a key feature here. I'm especially gratified to affirm that that's in keeping with what's already in place anyway. So thank you both for affirming that one. And thanks to staff also for kind of helping guide my other squishy idea. I do want to follow up, and hopefully we'll persuade other counselors to stick with these communities. This is a unique form of housing and a unique form of neighborhood. And I think it's one that can be made even more livable and more affordable if some technical assistance is available for efficiencies, for investment, for upkeep. And I'd like the city, now that we are in the game of helping preserve these neighborhoods, going to the next step of another version of preserving. So it was a goofy idea to try to put it in these legal documents, but I think it's an idea that still has merit. So thanks for redirecting that. I'm actually disappointed at how quickly we took the AMI level out. bumping it a bit, maybe kind of in the context of our community is unique or is in a category different from the state average. But taking it out altogether, I think I'm joining Councilor Zelinski's at least question that I also express as a concern. We may be undermining an opportunity to keep our housing stock diverse and the people who can afford to actually own and live here diverse by putting it more to market accessibility without those kind of income guidances. I liked it better when we were trying to target a subset of our community. And I thought about trying to amend it back again, but I'm not sure there's appetite for that.
Depends.
I'd be glad to try that if that's acceptable. I'll propose an amendment to the current motion to reinsert a 150% AMI guidance.
Hang on.
Like,
Hang on.
Can you do
Councilor
that?
Townsley.
As a point of order, can you do a third amendment to redo another amendment, or is the second amendment as far as you can go?
No, you can make as many as you want. If it is not a friendly amendment, as you did, it would be considered a substitute main motion, which would mean Councilor Smith would need to propose a motion, get a second. Council would vote on only that issue of the amendment to the motion. If it passed, then the main motion would reflect that change.
But at this point, I understand it's a friendly amendment.
I'd offer it as a friendly amendment, but the two friends already went the other direction.
Well, let's see what happens. I see Councilor Schachter's light is on, so let's give it a whirl here. Councilor Schachter.
I'm not going to comment on my action at this point because no action is called for. However, I would address this, Councilor Smith and others. There is no control that we have over the list price that one of the owners puts on their unit. That will be market value no matter what we do. Given that, and given this is, as Hannah mentioned, this is what we generally call naturally affordable housing relative to our private market. And given that it does preserve almost in perpetuity manufactured housing as a diverse option, I think that the amendment that was already approved actually creates more opportunity for our workforce to be able to meet the conditions of the listing price and still meet our goals. So therefore, I like the first amended motion.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a no.
So that's
I wasn't asked for any action. I'm just.
No, he asked you for a friendly amendment.
So then it would be a no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sumner. Before I go back to Councilor Townsley, I got a quick question. Does the AMI in there or not in there affect the price of these units when they come to market?
No, and I think what Councilor Schachter, I kind of had a light bulb moment there as you're speaking. That 45-day period, they can set the price. And in that 45 days, if we kept the AMI, what we're saying is you have to only accept an offer from someone who's of this category. It doesn't say that they can afford the price that we set.
Correct.
And then after that 45 days, if no one who can afford the price comes forward, then we also lose the workforce housing priority piece, and then it goes to market. So thank you. That had not occurred to me. Light bulb in the front row.
Okay, light bulb one, light bulb.
That's why I asked about the deed restriction.
Yeah, light bulb two. Since we're in second position, most likely it'd be second, it won't be third or anything, whatever. If the first position requires an AMI, what's going to become rule?
Well, both would apply. It would depend on, I haven't seen those documents yet. If they require an AMI, I don't know that they will, but if they did require an AMI, their restriction, whatever it is going to be recorded ahead of ours, presumably. And so you'd have to go with the most restrictive at that point in whatever time period they had put on theirs. It may match, it may not. It's just some of those questions I don't have answers to. I'm sorry.
But there's a slight chance that if they come back with something, what we're doing here doesn't really much matter.
Maybe.
And can we be at odds?
We can be at odds. And I think my follow-up to this is that I really wanted to get this where you guys wanted to be, and then have a follow-up conversation about what,
Okay.
you know, how they're structuring their primary focus is around the covenants that are recorded by the ROC itself, and then their loan agreement. And so I haven't had a chance to look at either one of those yet. Like I said, we've been focused on getting this deed restriction where you guys want it. And keeping in mind that at some point that loan's going to be paid off, but your deed restriction will still be in place.
Right. That's, I think, the most important thing out of all of this. So, Councillor Townsley.
Just to answer Councillor Smith, because I think it's important that we go back and forth on this, but the other piece that I think is also really important to look at is the ballot language that passed the 2C funds. And there's just nothing in that, or the ordinance that put it in force, that talks about low-income housing, which, we can debate whether or not we like that idea, or we want that idea, or whether that idea is nice. But I think we've got a responsibility back to the voters that passed this money that we're using, to use it the way that they approved it in the ballot. So that would be I guess that would be my counterpoint to why those other things to me would not be. I'm not saying that, we want the most wealthy people possible to buy in there. I'm just saying that in that ballot language, there's nothing in there about anything other than affordable workforce housing. And I think that our responsibility is to go back and take care of those funds like they were approved. So that would be my.
Thank you. And just to follow up, that's a little curiosity on my end. What Councillor Townsley just said about the ballot language and the AMI, how do these two mesh?
There's nothing that prohibits you from being more restrictive as far as how you, and that's why you have a whole advisory committee on what AMIs you're trying to hit and how you're trying to make that affordable. Certainly it's within the ballot language. If you were going outside in terms of expending funds in some way that is prohibited, this is a permissive thing, not a prohibited thing, I guess.
Right, but for us to have AMI in there is perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's a policy choice for you guys on how you achieve that affordability. To Councillor Townsley's point, it doesn't require it.
Right, but we can.
Nuance difference, right? Yeah, it was, and how those funds get recommended to be spent, and what you guys approved, that latitude was given to you in the enabling ordinance as how you determine that is best used. And so it will have some tie to, there's going to be some decision made on affordability and how do you determine that and how do you best implement. But to the councilor's point, it's not prohibited or it's not required to use AMI in the ballot language.
But just to summarize and clarify again, the ballot language is one aspect of it. The second one is the ordinance that follows how we apply it.
Yeah, and within the ordinance doesn't require AMI either, but what it does do is say you should be basing your decisions on the recommendations of your board, as well as ultimately you're making the budgeting decisions on how you spend that money to accomplish those goals. That's what I'm saying is where that's within your scope.
It's pretty wide.
How you do it.
How we can do it. Okay, excellent. Thanks for that clarification. Councilor Zelinski.
So are we keeping anything in there about priority for Glenwood workforce?
We are. First 45 days, it is Glenwood workforce is the priority. Those 3 tiers, city limits 81601, 30 miles in the first 45 days.
So
they get priority.
In a real world application, if it is a market rate property and somebody from Glenwood workforce puts in an offer and it's not full asking, they can say no, and then it goes back to somebody else.
After 45 days.
after 45 days. So we're really not, other than just like by preserving the nature of this community, which I wholeheartedly support, we really actually, beyond this initial investment, we're not doing anything to ensure that it's Glenwood workforce after that.
I think that, so this goes back to, we had talked about a reporting requirement that 80%, like what we did on the LIHTC
Yep.
loan, be included. I think what you're going to find on this is via natural selection.
I totally understand that. I'm just
From that-
clarifying for myself that like,
Yeah,
if
there's
we-
not, because
yes.
we don't have that sort of required 80% of
Yeah.
Glenwood workforce or something like that. We don't have anything that guarantees beyond that for the first 45 days, Glenwood workforce gets the priority on bidding on that.
Gotcha. And I don't have like a fundamental opposition to that. I just needed to understand what that looks like in reality.
Thank you. Council Schachter.
Two things. Obviously, we don't want to own the park. If we did, then I think a deed restriction would be far more applicable. But also I want to reiterate the motion. I didn't state it as eloquently as you did in the staff report, but the motion also gave you a fair amount of latitude, I assume, short of dramatic changes, to make sure that we align with the rock conditions. And only if there were a major reversal of what we wanted, you would come back to us with necessary revisions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's what I interpreted from the motion is.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate Councilor Townsley highlighting the ballot language notion again, because honoring those who approve programs, especially funded programs, is important. And I appreciate the reminder, because I meant to speak to that earlier, but what I would have said is what basically happened in response here in the discussion, that there are many implementation details that have emerged since the voters approved that weren't on the ballot. And many of them for good reason. The Good Deeds program, the employer rental partnership program weren't on the ballot. But they are creative techniques for implementing the overall voter intention. And now I find there was actually an ordinance language there that allows this kind of enhancements. My other question is, I've lost track of the status of my amendment to the amendment motion. Did that die for lack of a second, or is it still in?
No, because he said no. He's
So
not accepting
if you
it.
want to make it as a substitute main motion and see if you get a second, we'll see if it dies for lack of a second.
Then I hereby move the amendment to put 150% AMI threshold back into the measure.
And this is at this point a subsequent motion to the main motion?
Substitute, yes, it's a substitute main motion. So if it gets a second, you'll just vote on that.
Right. And then the other one is adjusted. I get that. Councillor Smith just made a motion, substitute main motion, an actual one, and to put the 150 back in, and we're looking for a second. And I don't see a second, so it dies for lack of second. We're back to the original. That's my first subsequent motion that I've ever done. So there you go.
Substitute main motion.
Okay, sounds great. Hey, always something. Councilor Solinsky.
So thank you for all this conversation, discussion. At the end of the day, I feel really comfortable that there is love for this community by the residents, and by empowering them to manage it in a way that they see fit, I think we're preserving the character of that community and workforce housing. I just really needed to understand, because we're new in this like housing world, like what that looks like in real life applications. And I want to make sure that, you know, in the spirit of what was voted for and how we are being asked to be stewards of this money, we're doing the right thing. And so that's why I didn't support the substantive motion.
It's
Because
all good.
I feel like it's all in there.
It's all in there. Okay, excellent. Let's make that the last comment. And let me call the question. Everybody clear what we're doing? On the motion in a second, so let's call the question.
It's unanimous. It passes, and I'm a little disappointed I didn't get called to reread the motion.
Would you like to say it now?
Yeah.
The moment has passed. That's right. Thank you, Ryan. I'll call for a 5-minute recess.
Good luck to the co-op.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's just take a
M is able.
I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay, time being 10 to 9, I called to order the second half of the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. We'll move into item 13 on the agenda, code amendments to Title 070 and Title 030 related to accessory dwelling units, design standards, use definitions, and errata corrections.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two code amendments before you tonight, two ordinances, part of the code amendments. So two action items, ordinance 2025-19 is in regards to Title 70, which is our development code related to accessory dwelling unit standards, design standards, and definitions. Second ordinance 2025-20 is for Title 030, which is amending administrative staff role language. I have the language here for you guys to go through each one. We talked about action item 1 for the landscaping with ADUs. This is something that staff has seen and are proposing this amendment to allow an exemption for ADUs to not be subject to certain aspects of our landscape code because they are our smallest unit and it is costly for ADUs, which our goal is to make them less costly. So I'm going to cruise through these pretty quickly and then allow questions on the opposite side. But these are just slides that show you exactly what part of the code is being changed. All of these have been recommended for approval by Planning and Zoning Commission. And let's see, the next one is in our residential site and building design. We're looking at building materials and also colors. The first one being stucco. Stucco is not currently an approved primary building material. It's left up to staff to make that determination whether it's an other comparable material. And so we are adding it to the list for allowable primary materials, stucco or exterior insulation and finish systems with this, which is the synthetic version of stucco, and also eliminating the prohibition that EIFS or EIFS is not utilized in high traffic areas such as primary building entrances. We don't actually feel with the advances made in stucco that that is necessary any longer. It's a weird look, Mayor. Thank you for that. Further, actually, one more thing about that. Our Historic Preservation Commission did weigh in on some of these design aspects as it relates to our downtown core. We have additional standards for the downtown core boundary, which is basically just to preserve a more of a historic neighborhood character that exists there. Most of our or all of our designated historic buildings are in the downtown core. Emery Ellingson, our senior planner, who's historic preservation liaison, is also here and can answer questions about that if we have any. So while we're allowing stucco and EIFS as a primary building material in residential design, there is still a limitation within the downtown core that it not be used as a primary material. If you have questions about that, I will get Emery to come up and answer all of them. Next, we're looking at colors. So currently residential building design and character, we have limitations on the use of white and off-white in the downtown core. So this is something that we want to release the downtown core of. Emery can speak to that historic buildings have used those colors and we don't feel the necessity to limit them. So we're removing white and off-white as a prohibited paint color in the downtown core. And also on the non-residential design standards as well. So residential design standards, non-residential is allowing commercial buildings as well to utilize white or off-white in this change. Hotel definitions, this is coming out of an evolving industry that we've seen and some additional clarification that staff feels is necessary between hotels and vacation rentals. As you may remember, vacation rentals have regulations and we limit the number that can occur. What staff has realized in implementing these definitions is that there's a little bit of a loophole that a hotel can call itself a hotel, but really be acting as a vacation rental. And so we've added language that a hotel must actually have an on-site check-in lobby so that it walks and talks a little bit more like your traditional hotel. And we feel that that will prevent any loopholes of applying a hotel use when it actually is more of a vacation rental use, which we limit the number on. And then that is for your first ordinance, 2025-19. Moving on to action item 2, which is the next ordinance. This is what we call an errata change. And it's simply in the administrative departments section that says, that currently states the city engineer shall also serve as the traffic engineer. We've made strides in our personnel and we have a traffic engineer, so we are removing that. Those are the code changes before you. Planning and Zoning Commission minutes were in your packet. Hopefully you had a chance to look at their discussions, but these were approved for recommendation as they are before you right now. And thank you very much. We will take questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Back to council. Questions to staff. Counselor Schmal. Oh, sorry about that.
I think I'm good.
Oh, it happened.
Hannah, I saw a term in here in the, from the P and Z, accessory tourist rental.
Yes.
That's a new one on.
So in our vacation rental category, we have 2 permits. One is a short-term rental permit and the other is an accessory tourist rental permit. We made a differentiation. If you have a short-term rental permit, you're renting out an entire house that you don't live in. If you have an accessory tourist rental permit, this is a little bit more permissive for people who maybe want to rent out a single room in their home. And so there's an on-site person that lives there and you're renting out 1 bedroom. And it doesn't have as many of the regulations as a short-term rental does. It was an allowance that we had to acknowledge there are a variety of circumstances in which people who live in their home might need an extra level of income that they can get through this mechanism. So they're not limited to the 250-foot buffer. They are
Different fee.
different fee. Thank you. Yeah, it's a completely different category, but it's much more restrictive in what you're renting out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Are we asking questions about the whole shebang, accessory dwelling units and engineering all at once?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm open to it. Yeah.
What is the effect of this landscaping exemption on the broader landscaping program? Is it really just keeping an ADU as new construction from tripping this requirement for the whole primary residence?
Yes.
And is it, I think I know the answer to this question from the chart you sent about how many ADUs there have been. Is this going to make a dent in the success of our landscaping incentives?
That's a very well thought out question. It's actually going to make more of a dent in our accessory dwelling unit production and will be transparently, I won't say detrimental, but we won't get as far in our landscaping requirements as if you left it the way it is. So right now, accessory dwelling units trigger landscaping to come up to our code, which is the code that we did to be water efficient and reduce water usage, which is a great goal that the city has been working on through a variety of programs. This landscaping amendment was a great tool to get all properties to abide by that and reduce water usage. By removing accessory dwelling units from having to do this, we possibly slow that progress of getting that more across the city. But I will say, just with the number of ADUs that we have, that's a very nominal amount. So currently an accessory dwelling unit that hits these triggers, it's over 500 square feet, it would make your entire property. So if you have a nice single family home on a large lot, you have a garden and you've got lots of Kentucky bluegrass turf that you love, you put in an ADU in the back, that whole lot would have to come up to the water, the landscaping and irrigation standards that we put in. Now that is a good thing when you're looking at reducing the use of water. It is not so good on the other side of the coin of making accessory dwelling units cost effective to build, because that can be, depending on your lot size, quite cost prohibitive.
I think my auxiliary question is obviously answered, but just in case. Putting in an accessory dwelling unit doesn't trip the landscaping requirement for the primary residence and full lot. But
It
that
does.
doesn't exempt them from the landscaping requirements. Overall, if they do a different kind of improvement or permit application, not an ADU, they might still trip landscaping
I
requirements.
see. Yes, you're absolutely correct. So it's 25% alteration to the primary dwelling or 500 square foot addition is what will trigger you to, so it's not just an ADU. If you're doing a massive remodel to your single family home, you could also trigger that threshold and be required to update your entire lot.
Thank you. Why was stucco an aberration in the first place? Why was it not allowed?
What I will say, and we've heard, great.
Yes, this was one of the changes that we took to Historic Preservation Commission and we discussed a little bit. And so stucco's been around as a building material for a long time. There's definitely houses built in the 20s and 30s where they did that. But in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of stucco that wasn't done well. And when you get water in stucco, it can crack, it can lead to mold, mildew. So I'm guessing that's probably why it was not included in the original primary materials. So that's, why it was there. And then why we're suggesting the change now is because right now it's very gray. When someone wants to do stucco, is it a comparable material? And so the intent of that was to have it just delineated. Outside the downtown core, you can use it. Inside the downtown core, it'd be prohibited, which I can answer more questions on that too, if you want.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have a similar question about color, except that the inflection I'm going to put on it will blur the line toward commentary. What in the world is the city doing in the business of regulating house color?
That's a great question.
Which is why it's before you this evening. I mean, our design standards, we do have really great design standards, but I think in some cases it might have gone a little bit on the more restrictive side. And we just recognize there have been projects that are white or off-white that are done well. It's not blinding passersby. But I think at some point, and Councillor Schachter, I know this was something that has come up for you in the past as you were serving on P&Z. It was not the preferred color. We have other places in our code that encourage earth tones to match the mountain vibe that we live in. And white was not seen as embodying that mountain vibe. That's my best guess.
Okay. Well, given a future opportunity, I will be happy to bring in photographs from Murano, Amsterdam, Greenland. Big photograph crafts booth at Strawberry Days tomorrow, where we see communities with vibrant, brilliant, daring bolds and reds and blues. And they are cool looking towns. So I don't want us to go all pastel-y here, but we'll save that for another
Apparently
time.
not very bold in our colors.
I'll go save that for another time.
We're afraid of color, as they say.
I noticed that, maybe unrelated, but maybe related, that this week's Housing Commission met and one of their agenda items was ADUs. Were they talking about this? And if so, did they offer recommendations on this proposal?
Housing Commission has made recommendations on ADUs of reducing the cost in the past. So this would uphold that. We don't have a direct, trying to think if they discussed this particular one.
I didn't see what about.
Yeah,
ADUs
I don't think
discussing. It was just
we've got it in front of them, but they're also working on an accessory dwelling unit program. So I think it is safe to say that Housing Commission in the past has been very pro reducing costs of accessory dwelling unit production.
Okay, thank you. And I think finally, no, that was it. That was the final one. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'd like a verification on stucco downtown, if I could. And I think I just saw that on your code change. Is the stucco only not allowed if you build an addition to an existing house that doesn't have stucco?
Correct. So if you had an existing house that was a stucco house, it'd be now if this were approved this way, it would be legal non-conforming, which means you could maintain it, repair it as long as you have it. But if you were to do an addition, it couldn't be the primary material.
So if
you
it's
have
the
to make-
Victorian with siding, you couldn't put a stucco addition on.
As a primary material, if you really wanted some, that's where we would review the plans. Is it an accent? Is it part of it?
Got it.
But yeah,
How about it's brand new construction?
no.
Wait.
Current.
No. New
New
code.
construction as written, you have a vacant lot downtown and you like to do stucco. No.
No, in the,
Under the,
Oh, sorry.
proposed change.
yes.
And he is correct. Downtown,
Yeah.
still no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, okay then. That just hit me. That just hit me. It's like, what? Okay, so if it's an addition, the new in the new code, you can, as long as it's not the primary, but if it's a new construction, you cannot.
I think I misunderstood your first question.
I probably didn't say it right,
That's
but
okay.
that's okay.
So it's a prohibition as a primary material for new construction and new addition.
In the new
downtown.
code, in the new proposed
Yes,
code.
that's yeah.
I'm just gonna jump in here. We have two areas that we're talking about. We're making it a primary building material for the rest of the city.
Mhm.
We are maintaining that it can't be used as a primary material in the downtown core. So it's a yes and a no.
But as an accent, it can be used in the downtown.
Yes, and guess who gets to decide whether it is an accent or not? That would be me.
Okay.
I like cookies and cupcakes.
Lawsuits.
And lawsuits, exactly. Okay, thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you again, and I apologize, even though I asked my question about procedure, I didn't take advantage of it. I know question was in another part of my notes, and that's about the engineering matter. I think we're not, but I want to be sure we are not accidentally eliminating the opportunity or say anything about the importance of traffic or transport. I think Lee's actually called transportation manager, but something like that still can happen under the
Absolutely.
activities conducted by the city engineer.
Directors and the city engineers in code all over the place have the authority to delegate their choices. So that's why we wanted to change it, because it's actually a little bit more flexible this way.
So he or his
Brian will
subsequent
still be
engineers
very much involved.
could do variations of staff,
Yes.
supplemental staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think this requires two actions. What do I see? And obviously the 070 is the building and then the 030 is the engineer. Right, okay. Any other questions? Counselor Townsley?
I was gonna make a motion.
Oh, okay. No, hang on, public first, so just a second. Thank you, guys. Anybody from the public here that'd like to comment? See none, close the public portion. Bring it back to the commission, item 13, code amendments to title 070, and we'll go with the title 070 first, ordinance 2025-19. And now we got Counselor Townsley.
I move with no reservations whatsoever, so Hannah thinks I don't always dislike her or something like that. I think these are really good. You're taking some things off. I think they're excellent. So I move that we approve ordinance 2025-19, code amendments to title 070 as presented.
And Counselor Solinsky.
I second.
Okay, excellent. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Counselor Schachter?
We have to add the findings to this motion or not?
No, we're good on that.
Nope. Thank you.
Any discussion? Okay, I'm the only one then. I will not support this because I believe stucco is a great building material in any part of town. I could see how stucco should not be part of a addition to a historic building, to an older building. I get that. But a brand new construction, stucco is a wonderful material. It is fire resistant. It could help with, well, fire resistance in close quarters and so on. It's relatively affordable and it's low maintenance. And so I would suggest that we let new construction have stucco, but not additions to historic houses. That's all. And if it has traction, great. And if it doesn't, then that's fine too. No problem. So Councilor Zelinski.
So to piggyback on that comment, I think there's been a lot of talk about having a historic district and some other things. I feel like perhaps material choices could be in conflict with that down the road, and maybe that's part of a larger discussion in the downtown area, but I don't see any reason to not support this motion tonight
Right.
and just
Fair.
perhaps consider that down the road.
Sure. Let's get through this. And like I said, Councilor Schachter.
So are you making a comment, not an amendment?
I'm making more of a comment because I don't think it's going to track, but that's fine.
And-
I just won't support it, and that's
And related
the
to
right to
what,
do so.
what you and Mayor Pro Tem said, maybe we don't have to do it, you won't do it tonight, but what is a historical residence? That's a tough one, okay?
Right. And when it comes to historic district, first of all, we don't have one.
Right.
Number one.
Don't for-
Second, we're working on it, but we don't know if it's ever going to happen. We have historic landmarks. I get that. That's why I said, if you do an addition to historic landmark or a historic building, no, you shouldn't use stucco unless it's not a primary building material. But for a new construction, stucco is the way to go. You have no maintenance. You have. It's stucco. It's the best building material out there for siding. There's no question about it. And if we change the motion, great. And if not, then I said what I had to say. So it's all good. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
Councilor Townsley.
Emery, can you give us, I mean, you know, I think I was in favor of no stucco downtown just because I like the way downtown looks.
Sure.
I think he's got a valid, can you just give us why that?
Sure,
Yeah, why-
and I think we've talked a lot about competing priorities today. You know, we have this thing, we have this thing. All the commissions, they're pretty focused. In Historic Preservation Commission, they look through things with one lens, which is preservation. Now, like Councilor Demis said, you know, stucco is a great building material. It's also more efficient and easier to install. So if you have an older building that has wooden siding and you're thinking about fixing it, you're more likely to rip it all off maybe and do stucco because it's cheaper and easier. And so when Preservation Commission is looking at, okay, what structures do we have that are historic? A lot of them are wooden siding. So this is more of from a preservation focus, you want to incentive, well, kind of push people to maintain what they have in wooden siding in that look. So that's where that's coming from. And there's lots of, like we've said tonight, you can have competing priorities. So that's really the focus why staff brought this is right now, the way code works is stucco is not allowed. It's talked about being a comparable material. So the idea of having a no in the downtown core and a yes everywhere else is just trying to give it some structure and also include preservation suggestion.
And if I may, I am on the Historic Preservation Commission and I love what these guys do. But if I choose not to landmark my house and my house is older and I feel like I want the insulation value, stucco is a phenomenal R value compared to siding, no maintenance, fire resistance. And I'm not allowed to do that just because I have an older house, I'd be upset.
Point of clarification, it wouldn't be the age of your house, it'd be the location of your house in the downtown core.
Well, that makes it even worse. That's when you think about it.
Just clarify.
Okay, thank you, Emery. That's great. And just because I'm 50 feet too far over, that makes it even worse that I can't put stucco on and get all the benefits from stucco. So I cannot support no stucco downtown. Sorry, Councilor Schachter.
Let's say whether, and it is worthy bringing it back up to both commissions. We are in the middle of and the beginning of some significant home insurance crises. Right now, it's focused mostly on roofs, but I can see it getting to proximity and siding as well, and to restrict any owner from meeting subsequent unpredictable insurance requirements because stucco or certain types of resistant siding are not allowed, could end up in some serious jeopardy. So I would encourage a relook at this.
That means we can't move forward tonight.
No,
Oh.
no, just relook at your concern, not the motion.
Well, but
Just-
once it's done, it's done. Then why would we go back to a code amendment?
I mean, there will be endless code amendments. Job security for me, yay. Like you said, you had the question of why on earth is community development regulating the color of your house? This might be one of those areas where you guys are comfortable saying, hey, this has come a ways as a material. Thank you, Historic Preservation Commission, for your lens towards preserving historic character, but perhaps the downtown core boundary is not the avenue with which we do that. You're absolutely correct. It's a very large boundary. It includes all number of houses, old, young, what have you. So if that is what you guys are uncomfortable with, current code as it's written does not allow for stucco as a primary building material anywhere. If you want to make that change, we're making it for the rest of the city. I'm okay with you guys, if this is where you want to land, that we make stucco as a primary building material for everywhere.
Again, just for new construction. And I think I made it clear that if you have a landmarked house, no, it can only be an accent. I get that.
So that would be an amendment, a further amendment of what you're.
Oh, that's not, yeah, absolutely. So let's just keep going.
Keep going where?
With my amendments. No, no,
State your
no.
amendments.
The motion is set. The second is done. I know, but I feel, I hate to say it, I feel silly asking for a friendly amendment if you would. You would? Well, okay, friend.
If we go, I'm gonna object to this.
Friendly amendment asked, would you allow?
Can I just, before you make the friendly amendment,
Yeah,
if you're going to do that,
yeah.
Having been 20 years on the planning commission or whatever it is, that creating code on the dais.
I know.
That's what I was just.
And so,
But
may
again-
I make a suggestion that if you really want to pull this piece out of this ordinance so we can move forward with everything else. And if the direction of council is to revisit it, bring that piece back. We have some people that are waiting on the other stuff to happen so that they
Okay.
can move forward with their applications.
I
Does
think
that make
that's,
sense?
that makes complete sense. But again, being on the planning commission for 20 years, I can make code on the house. Just so you know.
And now mayor.
Just so you know.
I recognize you can. I should have said good code amendments.
Good enough. Good enough. Anyway, yes, friendly amendment. Let's pull the stucco out of item 13, action item A, and let's revisit that if it's okay with you. Let's do it on microphone. Councilor Townsley.
Yes, accepted, whatever the proper verbiage is.
Who was the second?
Who was the second? Who was the second?
Yeah, Eric.
Councilor Zelinski. Just pull it out and revisit. That's all I'm asking.
We have code
Can I get a
amendments
clarification?
that are coming.
Can I get a clarification?
Absolutely.
If we pull it out to revisit it, does that mean that anybody that wants to use stucco now can't use stucco until we revisit it?
It will remain a
Way it is.
current code, which is not allowed except where I deem it to be a comparable material.
So if somebody out there is like waiting to do a
I will-
stucco,
You still can't.
I'll provide the clarification for Counselor Zelinski's answer. This is not one of the items that anyone is waiting on currently.
okay, thank you. I just need to know that because I feel like we're getting in the weeds.
It's
on
the other,
something
it's
that-
the other items on the code amendments that are actually, people are waiting for the change.
Okay.
So removing this, we would bring it back to you in August.
Okay,
And to P and Z, we'd discuss it again if we came up with anything different.
I'm comfortable with that. So I will amend my second.
Thank you very much. Sorry, it was a little messy, but I was a little too passionate about it. Any other discussion? So the motion is clear. We move to. Oh, good point.
Yeah, I've written this all down. Let's have some.
Yeah.
Counselor Townsley, moved to, pass ordinance 2025-19 code amendments to title 070, With the amendment of pulling stucco out of the ordinance and bringing it back, Councilors Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski seconded it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ryan. And with that, I'll call the question. I know. Details. It's all about.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Moving on to action item B in item 13, ordinance 2025-20. Entertaining a motion. The engineer, Councillor Townsley, please.
I move that we approve ordinance 2025-20 code amendment to title 030 as written.
Thank you. And a second? Councillor Solinsky.
Second that.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? See none, we'll call for the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thank you, Ryan. Moving on to council comment. That was all of our discussion and actions, and I'll go from the left on in. Councillor Townsley.
I do think that it came up tonight and it's important to me, so I'll say it, is that even with what we call relatively small amounts of money, I think that we look at those, very carefully along with our $1 million asks and our $500,000 asks and whatnot. I would just ask that we take all of those pretty, never get to the point where we go, well, it's only 100,000.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councillor Schmall.
Yeah, in retrospect from the evening, I think we're in really uncharted waters right now. And what's become really evident to me is how funding from the federal government flows down through all of the other governments down to us, through the state to us, through grants, through programs, through all of that stuff. And I'm really concerned that funding is going to dry up, and it's going to have effects that we don't foresee right now. And so I'm maybe overly cautious and pessimistic about the continued funding for what we are becoming accustomed to here. So I offer that only as an observation, not necessarily to be the kid with the dark cloud over his head all the time.
Thank you, Ray. Councillor Solinsky.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you both for your comments because, fiscal responsibility is, I think, one of our highest duties. I do turn to our city manager and our finance department to help give us good guidance in that. But I do think it's also, we're well kind of instructed to keep that in mind. So thank you for that reminder. And something light and fluffy, I was reading through, I don't know, probably like social media, probably Facebook, but Carbondale, they have created something called the Carbondale Beautification Club, where it's like a group of people, intended people are kind of going to different places downtown. It looks like they did some work at KD&K, tidying up. And I think that's such a cool idea. And, we talk a lot about our community and how we love it. And, I look around, sometimes I see maybe some trash in the park or, maybe some stuff on the sidewalk or, it doesn't necessarily have to be such a targeted club, but I would just encourage all of us in our community to love on our community and do our part to beautify it in little ways every day. And those small measures can make an impact. And I think sometimes we look to other people to solve our problems. And I just am making an ask of my community to, take a minute and do your part. I think it can all have a cumulative impact. And I think it would create a lot of goodwill and generate a lot of good feelings within the community and maybe gather some momentum.
Thank you. Councillor Weimer.
I would like to encourage council, maybe Ryan can find it on the calendar, in an upcoming work session, maybe a good 60-minute block. Multimedia, I think, is going to be important, perhaps professional creative support to allow the proper platform and time for the mayor to further extol the virtues of stucco.
I appreciate that. I think we'll put that on. I'll second that.
A really important opportunity. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't think so. Councilor Schachter.
I'm yes on all of this. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. In just the last few days or the last week or two, plus the last few days, the bicycle lane striping on Blake, Pitkin, and Donegan have been refreshed. They're dazzling with reflective white paint, so we're back in business for the bicycling season. And the hard-working crosswalk, the crosswalk at the hard-working intersection of 8th and Colorado has been replaced after virtually disappearing as part of a continuing updating to the crosswalk. So bicycle pedestrian assistance with a seemingly small bit of material, but hard, tricky work makes a big difference for helping people get around safely. Appreciation to Danielle Wrigley, who left just, I think, yesterday from employment here. Is really, I think Ryan will agree, a key part of the glue at the city clerk's office. She really was careful attention to detail and really made things work there quietly many times, but always in a very enthusiastic and cheerful way. So appreciate her service. We received a letter relayed from staff from a citizen who wants to encourage support for pollinators.
Can I interrupt you? That's going to be under correspondence here in just a second.
Okay, great. There also was a letter to the editor recently from a citizen asking about air quality monitors and who owns them and why do we have them? Where do we have them? Why don't we have them? Is that a city concern? And would data from such monitors be something that we could put to use? Is there any city response to that proposal?
Yeah, we've looked into that. I can give you guys, maybe I'll just put that on the next agenda for a quick update or something.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I got not much. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for a lively discussion. It was a good, informative evening, and I think we made some nice forward steps. So thank you all. With that, we're going into report from city administration. We'll start with city manager Steve Boyd.
I'm good.
That was dramatic.
I don't know.
Did you
45-minute presentation.
again?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good too. Excellent. Now we can do correspondence. That would be Ryan Muse.
We
Please.
have something in correspondence.
Would you let us know what it is?
It's not usually part of it. Hold on.
No, but that's how it is. Maybe I'll start. Here. Oh, the first one is a letter from West Mountain Regional Health Alliance, and it was a thank you for approving their FAB grant that they applied for. And the second one was
A pollinator.
That's right. A call for supporting the pollinator movement, if you will. So I'm thinking there might be some discussion on that. Steve? Pollinator? Councilor Smith?
Discussion other than to see if there is a role for the city in that, or if city staff or other council members suggest a response to her.
Excellent. Thank you. Did all of you read the pollinator letter, and how do we feel?
And I bring it up because we've also been hearing from citizens who ostensibly are getting organized to make a pitch for a botanical garden on city land, and this seems to overlap. Do we need to at least refer them to each other or any other action?
Or I'm just asking, is there any appetite on council to support the pollinating movement?
Absolutely.
Yes. Would love to learn more about a pollinator.
Save the bees.
Save the bees,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. I
It
think.
really is, and I think that it behooves us to learn more about what a pollinator plan entails and whether or not that is something that we would like to adopt.
So you want to learn about it first before we issue a letter?
Well, so that's what they're talking about, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was join the movement.
We don't know what the movement.
Okay, all right. So with that, are we gonna have a 10-minute quick thing in a work session about pollinators? Okay. The work session, yeah. Right. Okay, that was correspondence. Excellent. Social event, unless we go too late. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I think I'd like to post up at our usual joint and have a little. We'll be at Doc Howard.
Excellent. Thank you. And with that, I'll do my best.
I'm on third glass of water, and if we're gonna talk about water, I really need to run down the hall first.
Let's
Let's
make a motion to get in.
Yeah.
And then we can take a quick break.
Okay, let's do that. That sounds great. Next item on the agenda is an executive session for discussion with city attorney pursuant to CRS 246402-4E for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, and pursuant to CRS 246402-4B to receive legal advice on specific legal questions, both regarding the Southbridge project and CRS 246402-4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice from city attorney relating to litigation styled Mitchell Cooper Ditch and Pipeline Company versus City of Glenwood Springs and Roaring Fork Transportation Authority. I'm entertaining a motion to get into executive session. And we got Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I move to go into an executive session for discussion with the city attorney pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, and pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 to receive legal advice on specific legal questions, both regarding Southbridge project and CRS 24-6-402 for the purposes of receiving legal advice from the city attorney relating to litigation styled Mitchell Cooper Ditch and Pipeline Company versus City of Glenwood Springs and Roaring Fork Transportation Authority.
We have a motion and Councilor Weimer.
I will second that.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll see none. Thank you. I guess we're gonna clear the room, and the room has been cleared